full dive game spawned him as the weakest goblin, so he evolved into its final boss. The crown eater of the first abyss had eaten thrones, and it knelt. Not to a hero. Not to a king. It knelt to a goblin holding a chipped kitchen cleaver. Species, starved goblin runt. A merchant on that same server had once weighed the goblin's ears and offered 4 copper for the pair. He had kept the cleaver. He had kept the price too. Everdawn Dominion's advertisement had asked if you would enter a second life if it could teach your body to move again. The woman in the testimonial hadn't lifted her left foot in 4 years. After 4 months in the neural helmet, she raised it 3 centimeters and cried, then laughed at herself for crying over it. Rook watched that clip more times than he would admit. Before the maglev platform collapsed under the morning crowd, his future had been almost offensively reasonable. Weeks from finishing his design training, a firm's offer waiting, a salary that covered rent and Mina's school fees. After it, he woke with a scar down his back and almost no feeling below his waist. Mina paid what the settlement didn't. She left her course, emptied her savings, and worked shifts until sleep happened on trains. Relatives called it devotion to her face. Through a kitchen door they thought was soundproof, they called Kai a burden and said no one would keep her. That love like that turned into resentment. Kai did not resent her. That was what made the words dangerous. You will! He loved her enough to think removing himself might be the last useful thing he could do for her. The night he nearly did, the advertisement played again. He watched it 3 times. On the third, he deleted the final message he had written to Mina. One more chance. He could give the world that much. Mina supplied it without knowing. A second-hand helmet by his bed, scratched casing, a brand new credit agreement underneath it, and a note saying she had taken another shift. Kaye ate the noodles she had left, positioned the helmet, and lowered the visor. The room folded into silver darkness. A guide asked him to choose a public account name. He chose Last Piece Standing. He had nearly removed himself from the board, so he felt entitled to one dramatic decision. The guide promised First Light Bastion, a protected settlement for new crowned adventurers. A gate opened under his feet. Kaye fell through it and landed face first in wet mud. He waited for fanfare. A fat black beetle crawled across his cheek. Kai pushed himself upright inside a ravine filled with leaning huts, rope bridges, animal bones, and cooking fires that had surrendered to the rain. Small green figures dug through refuse heaps. Something nearby was boiling a boot. If this was First Light Bastion, the property values had experienced a serious event. Then Kai saw his hands. They were green, narrow, and tipped with dirty nails. His arms looked like they had lost a disagreement with nutrition. A torn brown tunic hung from his shoulders. One foot wore a cracked sandal. The other had apparently been judged unworthy of footwear. His weapon was a chipped kitchen cleaver. Not a goblin sword shaped like a cleaver. Not an ancient cleaver of hidden kings. A kitchen cleaver with part of somebody's dinner still stuck to it. Kai opened his status display. Account, last piece, standing faction, world-born species, starved goblin runt level, 1 racial trait, scrounger's luck. The traits slightly increased his chance of finding junk and striking an exposed weak point. The system had not simply made him a goblin, it had inspected the weakest tutorial race and placed him below the standard model. Runt, Kai said. Good, I was worried there might be dignity involved. He searched for character customization. Nothing appeared. He requested a reroll. The system offered a basic movement tutorial. Basic movement. Kie stopped. He lifted one bare green foot. The leg answered immediately. He lowered it and raised the other. Then he bent his knees, straightened, and took one cautious step across the mud. No numb delay separated the decision from the motion. No chair supported him. No therapist counted while his body failed to understand a command his mind had already sent. Kai took another step. Then he ran. He ran through Mudgrave Warren with the chipped cleaver bouncing against his thigh. He jumped a drainage ditch, clipped the far bank, rolled through a pile of wet reeds, and got up laughing so hard that 2 nearby goblins fled with the boot. Steering, it turned out, remained a separate skill from locomotion. Kai did not care. The body was small, green, underfed, and dressed from the lost property bin of a very poor village. Its legs worked. He ran again until voices sounded above the ravine. 4 human beginners descended the slope in clean starter armor. Their group stopped when they saw him. The swordsman lowered his blade, not from mercy but disappointment. It's only a runt. The archer checked an item guide. 2 ears, 4 copper total. 4 copper. Kai had entered the most advanced virtual world ever built, and the economy valued his head below a damaged health potion. The healer laughed. Look at the sandal! Kai looked down too. In fairness, the sandal had made choices. He raised one hand. I'm not a quest target. The party became very quiet. Then the swordsman grinned. Rare talking variant. Apparently speech had not established personhood. It had improved the loot table. He charged. Kai moved before fear could lock him in place. The chipped cleaver caught the swordsman's wrist. Scrounger's luck flashed a pale mark over the gap in his bracer, and the blow dealt far more damage than either of them expected. The archer fired. Kaye ducked. The arrow struck a goblin digging behind him. Every goblin in the refuse pit looked up. The system informed Kai that a crowned player who attacked first became hostile to nearby world-born creatures for 10 minutes. 6 furious goblins came over the rubbish mound carrying spoons, clubs, and one object that might once have been a chair. The beginners had expected a 4 copper errand. They received local government. The healer shouted for everyone to focus on Kie. The swordsman tried, but 2 goblins were attached to his shield. The archer backed into the beetle pit. Kai circled, watched the health bars fall, and struck when Scrounger's luck marked weak points. The archer vanished first, leaving 2 potions and a bundle of arrows. The healer followed. Kaie finished the swordsman after the goblin with the chair removed his shield from the discussion. Experience and loot entered Kai's inventory. Worldborn characters, the system explained, could not earn normal human city reputation. They could gain levels, collect monster influence, and loot a percentage of unbound items from crowned players who attacked them first. Perhaps of Kai had spawned on the wrong side of a tutorial and discovered a different business model. The surviving goblins immediately began fighting over a dropped boot. Their political unity had lasted exactly as long as the threat. Kai took the potions and starter weapons before they noticed. He told himself this was compensation for being appraised by the ear. Deeper in the warren, a knife rat attacked from beneath a collapsed basket. Kai killed it and felt a second pulse beneath the ordinary experience gained. A dark gold thread entered his chest and opened a hidden window. Ancestral hunger. Kills credited to Kai or creatures bound to him could produce evolutionary essence. Repeated essence from a bloodline might unlock inheritable traits. Permanent evolution needed 3 things, and ancestral hunger listed them like a debt collector. 1. A level threshold. 2. Compatible essence. 3. An elite catalyst. Kai had none of the 3 yet. 3 branches flickered beyond the text, all locked. Kai stared at them until the knife rat respawned and bit his ankle. The future final boss of Everdawn, if the menu was to be believed, began his ascent by being attacked by lunch. He killed the rat again. Over the next hour, he hunted knife rats and hostile scavenger goblins beyond the warren's communal pits. The difference mattered to him. He would defend himself, and he would farm creatures the system marked as predators or raiders. He was not going to slaughter neutral villagers because a progress bar found it convenient. Scrounger's luck produced more cracked teeth, bent buckles, and spoiled hide than any reasonable person could want. Then, a level 3 scrap goblin dropped a notched ear cutter, a crude shore blade with bonus damage against goblinoids. The design felt insulting. The market demand did not. Thousands of beginners were crowding the slopes outside Mudgrave competing for weak goblins. Kai listed the blade at a modest test price. It sold before he closed the marketplace. He logged out and checked his phone. The legal exchange had converted the payment. The sum was small, but it was real enough to lower an overdue balance. Kai stared at the transaction, then at Mina's credit agreement. Everdawn had given him responsive legs in one world and money in the other. Then his right index finger moved. Not in the game. Kai sat motionless in the dark room. He ordered the finger to bend again. The response came slowly, barely more than a curl, but it came. He tested it 5 times. On the 6th, his hand shook from effort. The advertisement had shown a woman lifting her foot 3 centimeters. Kai finally understood why she had cried. He opened Mina's debt account and transferred the first sale against it. The number barely changed. That no longer made it meaningless. Kai put the helmet back on. Somewhere beyond Mudgrave Warren, stronger monsters carried stronger blood, and beginners still thought his ears were worth 4 copper. Both facts could be useful. 4 copper stopped being funny after the 3rd hunting party. By the 5th, Kai had decided it was still funny, but for different reasons. Human beginners entered Mudgrave Warren shouting about ears, loot routes, and efficient leveling. They chased neutral goblins into alleys, became hostile to every worldborn creature nearby, and then acted personally betrayed when the alleys fought back. Kai learned to watch from the roof beams. He let the raiders commit themselves, waited for their health bars to drop, and entered from whichever direction contained the healer. Scrounger's luck marked loose straps, gaps in armor, and weapons already damaged by bad maintenance. The trait did not make him powerful. It made other people's poor decisions easier to invoice. The loot paid better than goblin teeth. It also brought attention. The regional forum now contained reports of a talking runt who stole potions, used a kitchen cleaver, and appeared whenever a beginner party became vulnerable. Half the posts called him a hidden quest. The other half called him a cheating player. Nobody suggested leaving the 4 copper goblin alone. That option may have been hidden behind an advanced intelligence requirement. Kai moved into the warrens beneath Mudgrave. Knife rats gave less experience now, and ordinary scavengers produced almost no useful essence. The deeper tunnels belonged to spear goblins, hook goblins, and lean tunnel runners that attacked in bursts before vanishing through gaps too narrow for human players. The first runner cut Kai 3 times before he turned. The 5th found Kai waiting beside its only escape hole. He drove the notched ear cutter into the stone above the opening, forcing the runner to duck. The chipped kitchen cleaver met it on the way through. Ancestral hunger pulled a brighter thread from the kill, and the goblin essence counter rose. Repeated essence sharpened Scrounger's luck. Junk still appeared, because apparently ancestry could not cure the local economy, but Kai began finding usable buckles inside scrap piles and noticing weak points before an enemy committed to an attack. 5 ear cutters went onto the market. 5 sale notifications came back. The reason appeared on Sira Wind's launch stream. She had purchased one of Kai's blades and demonstrated that its goblinoid bonus cut the beginner grind nearly in half. Her practical manager, Jules Perrin, then mentioned that 8,000 players were competing for Mudgrave spawns and almost no one had reached the deeper tunnels. Demand increased while they were still speaking. Kai sent Sayra a small donation. It was less gratitude than commission, but commission was gratitude with accounting. He encountered her in person an hour later. 3 men had cornered Sayra near a rope bridge while an audience counter floated over her shoulder. Her silver starter armor showed cosmetic damage as her health fell. The men could have finished the fight quickly. They were deliberately stretching it because each new rip made their viewers louder. Jules spoke through the stream link. Disconnect. My contract penalizes an unscheduled launch logout. I know what the contract says. I also know what I'm going to do to the person who wrote it. Support? Q position 9,000 and something. Kai climbed onto the bridge support behind the nearest attacker. The man raised his club for another strike. Kai cut through the loose wrist strap. Scrounger's luck flashed. The weapon dropped into the ravine and its owner turned toward a green face at exactly the wrong height. Kai headbutted him in the stomach. There were few dignified ways to lose a fight. Being folded over a goblin runt ranked poorly among them. The other 2 attacked. Kai ducked the first blade, slashed the swordsman's knee, and kicked a support peg out of the bridge rail. The third man stepped sideways to surround him and fell through the new gap. Sayra used the opening. She swept the wounded swordsman's legs, pinned him with her shield, and let Kai finish the first griefer. 2 respawn lights followed. The man hanging beneath the bridge tried to negotiate. I didn't hit you. You were waiting your turn. Kai cut the rope he was holding. 3 attackers vanished. Their potions and starter gear scattered across the planks. Sayra watched the small goblin gather them. Then she opened a trade window and offered 6 health potions of her own. For the save, she said. Kaya considered whether gratitude exempted her from his current potion acquisition strategy. Smart, he said, and accepted. Say hey, Ra's expression stopped moving. Jules went silent for nearly 2 seconds, an impressive achievement from a professional manager. Did the goblin just evaluate your negotiation? Thank you, Say, Ra said carefully. You're welcome. Kaye left before the 8,000 people watching could organize a live expedition toward his location. Seha-R did not reveal the precise route. She replayed the rescue, blurred the nearby markers, and told her audience that anyone trying the same behavior deserved whatever small green problem arrived behind them. Jules watched Kai disappear into the tunnels. That is the hammer seller. Cleaver seller. At this rate, he'll sell furniture by dinner. Kai revised his opinion of both women upward and kept moving. At level 7, the scrap-tusk chieftain blocked the road beyond Mudgrave. Kacher was a hobgoblin twice Kai's height, wearing shields cut into armor plates and an iron jaw clamped over its lower face. 10 raiders guarded the bone gate behind it. Kai watched one rotation from a mushroom ledge and discarded the idea of attacking alone. The chieftain's roar improved every nearby goblin. Its guards changed formation to protect wounded members. They were doing what the common Warren goblins had never managed, cooperating for more than 8 seconds. The Monster Influence shop offered an answer. The Dominion brand cost nearly every influence point Kai had accumulated. Its rules were not generous. A world-born target weaker than him had to accept a solo challenge. Kai then had to defeat it without outside interference. The lowest grade allowed 3 followers. Upgrading his weapon would have been cheaper. A stronger cleaver could not carry loot while he slept. Kai bought the brand. His first target was a broad shield goblin driven away from the chieftain's camp for refusing to surrender its food. Kai marked the earth between them and issued a challenge. The goblin examined his size, examined the chipped kitchen cleaver, and accepted so quickly that the brand barely finished glowing. The confidence lasted until Kai attacked the shield straps instead of the shield. Once the goblin lost, the brand offered a binding. Its name was Brack. The defeated fighter rose at Kai's level, touched one fist to its chest, and immediately demanded its food back from the bushes. The second recruit, Nyx, was a tunnel runner who accepted because it believed Kai could not catch it. Kai did not try. He blocked 3 exits, left the 4th open, and stretched a stolen bowstring across it. Nyx crossed the dual boundary face first and woke as Kai's flanker. The third was Pearl, a hook goblin with a talent for dragging supplies away from active battles. Pearl stole the challenge marker before accepting. Kai had to win the brand back during the duel. He had assembled a tank, a flanker, and a thief whose first instinct was to steal company property. Management had begun. Kai equipped them with spare player gear and demonstrated simple formation orders. Break held attention. Nyx attacked exposed sides. Pearl recovered dropped equipment and pulled wounded allies out of danger. At first, they all rushed the same enemy anyway. After Kai made them repeat the route 3 times, their eyes flashed in confirmation. The first elite almost ended the experiment. A scrap maw boar broke through Brack's shield and charged Kai. Brack stepped into its path without waiting for an order. The tusk strike emptied the goblin's health bar, but the interruption gave Nyx time to cut the boar's rear tendon and Kai time to drive the ear cutter beneath its jaw. Brack vanished into dark brand light. An 8-hour recovery timer appeared. Bound followers could be defeated, but the brand would rebuild their game bodies. Bound equipment remained attached. Experience and loot from the fight still counted. Kai looked at the space break it occupied. The system described the unit as recoverable. It did not make watching a subordinate choose the hit feel inexpensive. While Brock recovered, Kai assigned Nix and Pearl a short hunting route with strict retreat limits. He logged out for sleep. When he returned, Brock was waiting. Nix had gained a level, and Pearl had gathered 17 cleavers, 9 potions, and an unidentified wooden spoon. Kai inspected the spoon. No hidden attributes. No quest mark. Pearl had simply felt it belonged to the organization. The 4 of them returned to the chieftain's camp. Pearl began by stealing a horn from the outer sentry. Nix lured 2 guards into a side tunnel. Brack locked the passage with a stolen tower shield while Kai killed 1 guard at a time. Each credited kill-fed goblin essence through ancestral hunger, including kills finished by his followers. The chieftain's roar caught them at the bone gate. Every surviving guard grew stronger. Brock's shield bent under the first charge. Kai ordered Pearl to hook the chieftain's ankle while Nix climbed the shield armor on its back. The giant hobgoblin spun, throwing Nix into a wall, then caught Pearl's hook chain and pulled the smaller goblin through the air. Kai struck the iron jaw. A scrounger's luck marked 1 fastening pin. The ear cutter broke against it. That was not the intended outcome, but the pin came loose. The chieftain roared again. The damaged jaw plate shifted and trapped the sound inside the metal cage. Its own command buff failed. The remaining guards hesitated. Brack hit the second fastening. Nix returned to cut the third. Earl wrapped the hook chain around the chieftain's knees and held on with the commitment of a professional thief protecting stolen goods. Kaya picked up the chieftain's fallen axe. The iron jaw came free on the next blow. Without its command roar, the boss was still larger, stronger, and angry enough to improve local weather. It was no longer coordinated. Kai rotated his followers, attacked from the open side, and refused every clean exchange. When the chieftain finally dropped to one knee, ancestral hunger marked the dense red-black organ beneath its jaw. Kai drove the axe through it. The boss fell. An iron jaw core entered his inventory beside the chieftain's green axe, rare command hide armor, and an earhook blade designed for human beginners. Kai kept the axe and sent the other 2 pieces to auction. The first serious guild bid covered everything he had spent on the Dominion brand. The core triggered 3 evolution branches. Mirafong Stalker promised speed, stealth, and poison. Carrion Hexer offered ritual magic and ranged curses. Ironjaw Hobgoblin offered strength, coordination, and pack mandate, a lineage ability that improved bound followers and future Dominion brand growth. Kai could choose only one. The selected lineage would become permanent, and the other branches would close. Each required its own trial. Failure would destroy the catalyst. Speed was valuable. Magic could solve problems his cleaver never reached, but the chieftain had nearly won because 10 ordinary goblins fought as one group. Kaye selected Ironjaw. The evolution trial sealed him inside the chieftain's bone hall. Brack, Nix, and Pearl were locked outside. Potions dimmed. The iron core fused over Kaye's mouth, while spectral versions of the 3 bosses he had defeated entered from separate doors. He had to survive them alone. The trial was not interested in whether he had collected enough numbers. It wanted to know if he had learned anything while collecting them. Kaye drew the boar spirit into the tunnel runner's path. He let the runner's leap strike the boar's wounded tendon, then used the collapsing animal as cover from the chieftain echo. He broke no enemy in a clean exchange. He made each one interfere with the others until Scrounger's luck exposed the same loose jaw pin he remembered from the real fight. The spectral chieftain roared. Kai drove the broken ear cutter's remaining hilt into the fastening. The echo shattered. The hall went red. Goblin essence ignited inside him. Bones lengthened. His shoulders widened. Bustle formed across arms that had looked borrowed from a hungry child. Iron-gray tusks pushed upward from his jaw, and dark bands settled over his forearms like natural armor. When the door opened, Kai stood almost as tall as a human. His display identified him as an Ironjaw Hobgoblin, first Scrounger of Mudgrave, binder of the Unclaimed 3, chieftain breaker, last piece standing. His account name remained short. His species and titles had formed a small parade. Brack stared. Nix circled him twice. Pearl offered him the wooden spoon, perhaps as a ceremonial object. Kai accepted it. Leadership required sacrifice. Pack mandates spread through the Dominion brand. His 3 followers straightened, their formation prompts sharpened, and a locked path toward larger squads appeared. Then a human hunting party entered the boss yard. They saw a tall, iron-tusked hobgoblin standing over the scrap tusk. Chieftain's remains with 3 armed goblins at his back. His title continued beyond the visible edge of their display. One player whispered, "New field boss." The healer checked Kai's level. "No, hidden event boss." Their tank lifted his shield. Imagine the drop. Korea had evolved 30 seconds earlier, and humanity was already trying to convert the achievement into equipment. He rested the chieftain's axe on one shoulder. "My ears are no longer 4 copper," he warned. The party charged anyway. Mudgrave's newest captain smiled. The hunting party lasted 43 seconds. That included the time their tank spent explaining the strategy. Kai's new body was not invincible. It was simply much stronger than 4 beginners who had planned around a level 7 field boss and found an evolved world-born player with pack mandate instead. Brack locked the retreat path. Nix removed the healer's focus. Pearl collected 2 potions before their owners had technically finished using them. The tank struck Kai's chest and dealt 1 point of damage. He stared at the number. Damage reduction phase, the healer guessed. Kai hit the shield once. The tank crossed most of the courtyard without using his feet. Correct, Kai said. It appears to be your phase. Clips of the encounter spread through the beginner channels. Mudgrave now contained an iron-tusked boss who talked, commanded named goblins, and became offended by low appraisals. Crownforge offered a reward for its location. 2 independent guilds formed expeditions. Kai left before tourism damaged the neighborhood. 2 more hours of deeper Warren routes pushed him to level 10. The system broadcast that Last Be Standing was the first account on the server to reach the threshold, and Sayra read the announcement live before 8,000 viewers. The Cleaver Merchant is also the talking field boss, Jewel said. Sayra studied the seller's short account name and the species paragraph attached beneath it. I have follow-up questions. Kai declined the friend request that arrived seconds later. Level 10 opened the gate beyond Mudgrave. He used it before Sayra found a more creative method of asking. The route beyond Mudgrave descended into glass, mire, a forest drowned in pale fog. Crystal webs stretched between black trees. Shallow pools reflected things that were not standing above them. Glassback spiders reached him before the regional warning did. Acid silk struck Kai's shoulder and began eating through his command hide armor. Break raised the tower's shield. 3 more spiders dropped onto it. Nyx tried to flank and stepped into a web hidden beneath the water. The system then announced that corrosion reduced potion recovery. Useful information. Its timing suggested a sense of humor. Kai ordered Pearl to cut Nyx free and force the spiders into a root tunnel where they could approach only 2 at a time. Pack mandate made each command faster. His followers did not become stronger merely by standing near him. They understood his intended formation with less explanation. They cleared the first wave. The forest replaced it. Every victory left acid stacks, torn armor, and webbing that slowed the next fight. A cuff dropped with minor corrosion resistance, but 1 piece protected 1 arm. The rest of Kie remained available to dissolve. Brack lost the shield. Nyx vanished beneath the cluster of hashlings. Pearl hooked Nyx's body out of the water and was cocooned before reaching shore. All 3 Dominion brand marks went dark. Kai killed the nearest spider, took the cuff, and ran. Iron Jaw hobgoblins were faster than starved goblin runts. Panic remained an excellent training supplement. He escaped Glassmire with 1 potion, 11% health, and 3 8-hour recovery timers. Outside the game, Kie reached for the water beside his bed. His right hand closed around the glass without trembling. His elbow bent smoothly. The arm still tired faster than it had before the accident, but the command traveled from thought to muscle without getting lost along the way. Warmth spread down his left leg. Kai pressed his palm against his thigh and ordered the muscle to tighten. Nothing happened. He waited, tried again, and saw a small twitch beneath the blanket. It was not standing. It was not walking. It was an answer. Mina called from her company's Everdawn training center before he could call her. She would be staying another night while her team worked toward level 6. You sound happy, she said. I have a surprise. Money or crime? Those categories are less separate than people pretend. Kai. Legal money, she sighed. That answer should have arrived first. He wanted to tell her about his hand and leg. Instead, he pictured Mina leaving training, taking 2 trains home, and giving up the sleep she desperately needed because he had said the word twitch. She deserved to see progress without another sacrifice attached. Come home when the block ends, he said. The surprise will wait. His second Glassmire push did not. Kai spent most of his monster influence reinforcing the Dominion brand and replacing his followers' supplies. When Brack, Nyx, and Pearl returned, he changed the route. Brack carried the resistance cuff on the shield arm. Nyx stayed above the water. Pearl's hook line linked all 4 of them so no webbed fighter could disappear beneath the pools. They farmed the first clearing until the 100th glassback spider unlocked Mirehide, an inherited resistance that slowed poison and corrosion. Ancestral Hunger offered web snare after 500 kills, but Ironjaw's active trait capacity was limited. Kai could keep Scrounger's luck, Mirehide, and 1 additional inherited trait ready. Changing the loadout required a safe rest point. He kept both spider traits available, swapping Scrounger's luck out during dangerous pushes and returning it when farming drops. It felt wrong to deactivate the talent that had carried him out of Mudgrave. It felt more wrong to die for sentimental loyalty to a passive bonus. Complete mist glass cuffs, gloves, and pendants eventually gave the followers enough resistance to rotate recovery. The rapid spider respawn that had trapped them became inventory. Then the forest introduced coil vipers. The snakes launched from reeds wrapped around weapon arms and applied venom whenever a victim moved. Nyx responded to the first bite by sprinting. The damage tripled. Karay dragged the flanker into a dry hollow and learned the rule the expensive way. Movement fed the venom. They advanced along stone ridges, stopped whenever the effect appeared, and killed the vipers 2 at a time. 2 hours later, the 1000th serpent produced live wire venom. Kai could now apply a bounded poison that grew stronger whenever the target moved or spent an action. Boss resistance capped the effect, and his active trait limit meant choosing it over web snare in ordinary combat. He tested it on an armored viper. 1 axe cut applied the venom. The snake fled. Every body length increased the damage until it collapsed near the reeds. The forest punishes exercise, Kai said. Nix, recently educated on the same subject, appeared to approve. The combination of mere hide, mist glass equipment, and live wire carried them to the web basin. The mere or web broodmother waited beneath a canopy of crystal cocoons. She was level 12, broad enough to bridge the pool and surrounded by reflections that moved half a second before the real body. Kai sent his followers wide. One pulse cocooned all three. He attacked alone, applied live wire, and discovered the broodmother had enough health to treat his new poison as seasoning. Her return strike removed a quarter of his life. Every time the followers broke free and returned, another web pulse sealed them. The cooldown ended at almost the exact moment they crossed attack range. The game had built a mechanic specifically to punish loyalty. Kai stopped forcing a group fight. He withdrew, rested at the edge of the basin, replaced livewire with web snare, and returned with every coil of spider silk the squad had collected. He struck once, retreated, and let the broodmother chase him. Web snare anchored one leg whenever she prepared the cocoon pulse. Rack hammered a crystal prison in a steady rhythm, making the false reflections flicker. Nyx and Pearl stayed back until the ability fired, then rushed in for a short damage window and withdrew before the next cast. The fight became a cycle of poison, silk, retreat, and deeply unreasonable patience. 34 minutes later, Scrounger's luck marked the joint beneath the broodmother's mirrored abdomen. Kai switched it into his active loadout at the rest boundary, crossed through an acid spray, and drove the chieftain's axe into the pale line. The basin filled with broken reflections. Two 4-star prism silk bundles dropped beside green mist-glass armor and a blue mirrorveil hood formula. Attackers who struck the hood suffered a brief slowing refraction. The boss's respawn timer appeared. 30 minutes. Organized players were still dying in the first clearing. Kai could continue toward a new region, or he could control the only early supply of a set every guild would soon require. He chose public service. Public service, in this case, meant charging the public. For 10 hours, the squad repeated the clear. The broodmother changed web angles, submerged parts of the basin, and once trapped Break beneath a cocoon so heavy that Kai had to shatter a crystal canopy and use it as a bridge. The fight never became automatic, but it became profitable. Seira's team entered Glass Mire with ordinary gear and died to the second spider wave. Their next attempt reached the Vipers and ended when two members panicked under livewire. Sehei Ra kept her frustration off camera. After the stream, she messaged Last Piece Standing. Do you have anything that resists Glassmire? Complete sets. The response took a moment. How many? Kai gave her the number. Jewels appeared over Seira's shoulder in the capture window. Asked for proof before you transfer one coin. Seira opened a locked trade room for 3 full sets. Kai placed every piece inside. She checked the resistance values twice, then accepted a price high enough to hurt and low enough for her team to recover through streaming. 5 figures entered Kai's account. Seira walked into the acid web that had killed her the previous day. Numb herself. Her health dropped, stabilized, and recovered. Jules looked at the set. He did not sell us armor. He sold us the next map. The clip reached every major guild. Kai's inbox hit 99 requests and stopped showing numbers. Private trades were suddenly inefficient. If everyone wanted the same road, everyone could argue about its value together. Kai rented the gilded curator, a marketplace presentation shell with an ivory mask, gold robes, an altered voice, and the posture of someone who had never compared 2 brands of instant noodles. The first complete mist glass set sold above Seira's private price. The second sold higher. When Kai bundled 3, corporate guilds discovered budgets they had previously described as impossible. Crownforge bid against a government training group. Independent teams joined only to prevent either buyer from controlling the route. Kai saved the Mirrorveil hood for last. A volunteer wore it in the demonstration ring. Each attacker who struck the hood slowed just enough to ruin the next combination. The effect would not win a battle alone. Organized players understood immediately that timing was the battle. Say, raw bid. Crownforge countered. The government account entered late. The final price exceeded several complete sets combined. Jules stared at the closing number. He let the forest establish the pain and arrived with the invoice. Behind the gilded curator's ivory mask, Kai transferred the item. He had begun Glassmire as a creature running from 3 follower death timers. He left its auction wealthy enough to replace a year of Mina's wages. The arm that closed the sale worked almost normally. The leg beneath his real blanket twitched when he told it to. Ancestral hunger still tracked the same 3 boxes from the Warren. Level threshold, checked twice over since the runt days. Compatible essence, thick in his blood after glass. Myers, spiders, and every goblin behind him. The elite catalyst remained empty. Whatever filled it was waiting somewhere past Beast Mountain. The auction did what successful businesses often do. It destroyed Kai's private advantage. Mistglass teams crossed the spider clearing. Seira's group mapped the safe pockets on stream. Crownforge reached the mirror or web broodmother, celebrated, and became a coordinated set of crystal cocoons before Vostre finished explaining why expensive equipment guaranteed victory. Kai watched the wipe and purchased the broodmother's web snare upgrade before regional demand raised its influence cost again. Then he upgraded the Dominion brand from 3 followers to 5. The road beyond Glassmire split toward the human capital and Beast Mountain. Kai looked at his iron tusks, goblin followers, poison-stained axe, and title long enough to require scrolling. The capital could survive without him. He took the monster road. Beast Mountain was not one mountain. It was a region of black ridges, sulfur vents, ruined shrines, and creatures that considered cliffs a suggestion. At level 11, Kai's beginner protections expired the instant he stepped onto Cinderback's shelf. An area blast threw his entire squad into a basalt wall. Ashbone Hexer stood among the grave markers ahead. They wore charred masks and carried bone tubes that launched clusters of burning curses. The second volley struck Brack's shield, spread to Neek's, and reduced everyone's armor. Kai retreated behind a shrine column. The sensible decision was to leave. The useful decision was to recruit whatever had just exposed the largest hole in his formation. His first attempt failed. The marked Hexer signaled its group, and overlapping blasts tore through web snare before the solo challenge could open. Kai lost most of his silk and all of Brack's patience. On the second attempt, he let the Hexers attack the terrain. Their volley cracked a narrow stone bridge. Pearl hooked the damaged support and pulled. One Hexer crossed before the span collapsed, two remained on the other side, still able to fire but unable to interfere with the Dominion brand trial. Kai applied livewire venom. Every retreating step punished the Hexer. Brack controlled the ledge, Nyx cut its launching tube, and Pearl collected the pieces while they were still fighting because standards had been established. When the target's combat rating dropped below Kai's, he issued the solo challenge. The Hexer accepted by firing directly at his face. Kai won after web snare jammed the damaged tube. Binding reset the creature to level 11, but it retained its area blast and armor weakening roll. 15 minutes later, a second Hexer joined it. 5 followers changed the mountain. Brack held the center. Nyx attacked the edge. Pearl controlled recovery and loot. Hexers broke clustered enemies before Kie entered axe range. Pack Mandate turned 5 separate creatures into the beginning of a unit. It also triggered a territory quest. The system offered ownership of an unclaimed summit if Kai expelled its ruler. He rejected the richest peak because it overlooked a player road, or could be purchased. Privacy became more expensive every day. He chose an isolated crown of black stone above the sulfur vents. The ruler was the Cinderhorn Saber King. It had the body of a tiger, the shoulders of an ogre, and one burning black horn curving from its forehead. Smaller ash cats hunted beneath it. When Kai entered the summit ring, the Saber King crossed 40 meters in one leap and removed Halfbreak's shield with a paw. Ice First axe strike barely marked its hide. 3 old bent shrines ringed the peak. Their carved channels pointed inward. Kai ordered the Hexers to blast the first control stone, Nyx to climb the second, and Pearl to open the third with the selection of stolen keys currently organized by no known system. The vents reversed. The next molten updraft caught the Saber King during its leap and slammed it onto the summit. Brack pinned one foreleg. Kai reached the black horn and saw Scrounger's luck mark a fault near its base. Boss threw all 3 of them away before the axe landed. That became the battle. Reverse the vents, force a landing, survive the Ashcats, strike the horn, and do it again after the Saber King adapted. On the third cycle, it stopped following the nearest current and attacked whichever follower had changed to control last. One Hexer was thrown over the edge. Neeks caught its mask. Pearl caught Neeks. Brack caught Pearl. Kai caught Break and briefly reconsidered the economics of leadership. He pulled the entire chain back. The rescue cost them a clean opening, but it revealed the boss's new priority. Kai activated the next vent himself and ran across open stone. The Saber King followed. The Hexers waited until its body folded for the leap, then fired into the Ashcats cluster behind it. Break braced at the vent rim. Nyx cut the rear tendon. Pearl hooked the horn. The reverse pressure struck. This time, every follower was waiting where the ruler landed. Kai's axe hit the fault. The cinder horn broke free in a spray of black flame. A dense Oni blood core remained inside the shattered horn. The Saber King was weakened but alive. The territory trial offered 2 endings. Kai could kill the ruler and claim ordinary boss rewards, or break the 3 spirit chains binding it to the peak. Expulsion would move the Saber King elsewhere and transfer the territory to him. The immediate loot would sell well. A private fortress could earn money while he slept. Kai broke the chains. The Saber King roared, gathered its remaining Ashcats, and vanished across the mountain. Dark flags rose from the summit. The territory registered as Rook's crown. It came with a private respawn point, sealed storage, assignable patrol routes, a training yard, and improved follower durability inside the border. It also came with 3 hostile nests, 2 collapsed watchpoints, and a hall that required a captain before it could function. Kai walked through the empty hall and placed his original chipped kitchen cleaver above the central hearth. It had no resale value. That made it the first weapon he could afford to keep. Since the accident, nearly every room in Kai's life had belonged to a clinic, a landlord, an employer, or a creditor in everything but name. Rook's crown was virtual stone, yet it was his because he had chosen it, fought for it, and built the group capable of holding it. The emotion lasted until the maintenance window opened. The system had awarded him a crown and immediately presented repair estimates. Clearing the inner nests pushed Kai to level 12 and opened a silver path behind the throne. The hidden Moon Valley realm would grant its first entrant 5 times the ordinary experience and materials. Before entry, a player could sacrifice 1 item to bias the reward family. Kai offered a 4-star Prism Silk bundle. It hurt enough to be promising. The entire server learned that last piece standing had entered Moon Valley first. A title increased his strength by 10%, which was reasonable compensation for the system announcing his movements like a neighborhood alarm. Moon Valley spread beneath a starless sky. Silver reeds became lunar wolves when touched by falling light, then dissolved after minutes. Most entrants would have rushed toward the closing boss gate. Kai watched 1 cycle and realized the temporary creatures were the real first clear reward. He stationed Brack at the widest path, Neeks in the reeds, Pearl near storage, and the 2 hexers where their blasts overlapped. 5 times essence poured into ancestral hunger. The followers learned to rotate without waiting for each order. When Neek slipped from a floating path, Brack anchored Pearl's hook line while both hexers fired backward to push themselves across the low-gravity gap. Saving 1 follower cost an entire lunar spawn cycle. Kai accepted the loss. An army that mattered only while profitable was not a dominion. It was equipment with opinions. The final boss, the Moon Eater Warden, hid its body among 6 moving shadows. Direct attack struck whichever image occupied the light. Kai ordered his followers to attack the moon mirrors instead. Each broken mirror removed 1 shadow and strengthened the real body, creating a shorter but more dangerous final phase. Painful trades were becoming a theme. Web Snare fixed 2 reflections in place. Byri, Myroi M. Livewire punished the Warden's shadow steps. The Hexers broke its lunar armor, and Brack held the true body long enough for Kai to drive the Saber King's core against its chest. The Warden fell. First clear rewards upgraded the Dominion brand from 5 active followers to 10, and opened 1 captain slot. Kai assigned the more experienced Ashbone Hexer. A command map spread from its mask across Rook's crown, allowing patrols and recovery rotations to continue while Kai was away. The Moon Valley Essence also completed the final requirement, glowing beneath the Oni blood core. Blood Oni Reaver. The branch promised enormous physical power, regeneration, and pain furnace, which converted a limited portion of damage received into temporary strength. The ability had a hard storage cap. Excess damage remained damage, a sentence likely included for players already planning something stupid. Evolution required ownership of claimed territory, the Cinderhorn core, a compatible resistance trait from Glassmire, and a trial at Rook's crown. Choosing it permanently closed, Kie's remaining hobgoblin branches. Kaie placed the core in the throne altar. Black fire surrounded the inner ring. His followers could defend the territory outside, but none could enter. Every strong enemy he had defeated returned as a blood shadow. Potions failed. The fire stored part of each blow inside the waiting pain furnace and demanded that Kai survive without releasing more power than his future body could contain. He fought the Scrap Tusk chieftain first, then the Broodmother, then the Saber King's burning shadow. The runt would have died to 1 hit. The Ironjaw endured because the runt had learned to use tunnels, timing, poison, webs, and other people without treating those people as disposable. Kai turned the chieftain's charge into the Broodmother's web. He baited the Saber King through the black flame. When Pain Furnace reached its cap, he released the stored force in 1 axe strike through all 3 shadows. The altar split. Crimson bloodfire climbed Kai's body. His green skin darkened to red. Black horns curved from his brow. Muscle rolled across a larger bipedal frame, while old iron tusks shortened into dense lower fangs. Glassmire resistance settled beneath his skin. Hack Mandate remained in his blood. The system named him Blood Oni Reaver, Ironjaw Ascendant, Crown Chieftain of Mudgrave, Lord of the Glassmire Road, First Master of Rook's Crown, followed by enough lesser titles to conceal a small animal. Last Piece Standing remained the account name. Kai opened 1 clawed hand. Pain Furnace pulsed beneath the palm, empty and waiting. He had entered Everdawn as a goblin whose ears were worth 4 copper. Now he owned a mountain. Level threshold. Compatible essence. Elite catalyst. Just 1 of the operation. All 3 boxes closed at once, and Blood Oni Reaver stood where a starved runt used to run. Ancestral hunger only opened deeper, quieter than before. The next lineage waited behind catalysts this body hadn't found yet. None of it changed what was still broken beneath the helmet. The mountain vanished when Ka removed the helmet. His body did not. He sat forward without using the bed rail. Both arms supported his weight cleanly. His torso answered almost every command, and sensation ran through Bo's legs now, faint in the right and startlingly clear above the left knee. Kai locked the wheelchair beside the bed and placed both hands on its arms. Then he tried to stand. His hips rose. His left foot held pressure for 2 seconds. The right leg registered the command, trembled, and folded before it could lock. Kai fell back onto the mattress. The failure hurt less than it should have. Months earlier, his legs would not have participated enough to fail. He opened the rehabilitation log Mina had maintained since the accident. The early pages were full of her handwriting, dates, exercises, pressure responses, tiny changes she had refused to call meaningless. Kai entered his own result. Upper body control substantially improved, voluntary activation in both legs, unassisted standing unsafe. It was not the miraculous declaration he wanted to write. Mina had built their survival out of honest small gains. She deserved an honest one. She came home that evening with a travel bag, red eyes, and an argument already prepared about why the mandatory training block had not been that bad. Put the bag down, Kai said. Hello to you too. I need your help. Exhaustion vanished from her face. What happened? Kai showed her his hand first. He opened and closed every finger. Then he tightened his left thigh and let her see the muscle respond. Mina sat on the edge of the bed. Again, I-simple-ization of the nation of the rest of the name. He did it again. See? She covered her mouth. For several seconds, neither of them spoke. The helmet? She asked. Maybe. The timing matches. I want the clinic to confirm before we call anything permanent. Mina nodded too quickly, already crying. Good, sensible, we can be sensible. Can you help me stand? That frightened her more than the tears. Mina had assisted with every rehabilitation session before the funding ran thin. She checked the wheel locks, fastened the old support belt around his waist, placed his feet, and made him repeat the stop signal twice. Kai pushed. Mina lifted only enough to guide his hips. His knees shook. His shoulders strained. The right leg wanted to disappear from the movement completely, but the left held, and for 3 seconds Ka stood beside the bed with Mina's hands on the support belt. Then he sat before the legs chose for him. Mina hugged him so hard that his improved arms finally became useful. 3 seconds, she whispered. An irresponsible amount of showing off. She laughed against his shoulder. The sound broke halfway through. They scheduled a clinical assessment and agreed on rules. No standing alone, no skipping ordinary exercises because Everdawn felt faster, and no treating nerve response as restored string. His muscles had spent too long inactive. A signal returning did not rebuild what the accident had taken overnight. Kai agreed to all of it. Then he opened the property listings. Their current building had front steps Mina hated, a lift that failed twice a month, and an evacuation route designed by someone who had never met a wheelchair. The Glassmeyer auction placed safer options within reach. At the first showroom, a saleswoman guided Kai onto a raised model platform and praised the reinforced supports beneath it. A young woman with a tablet heard the claim from across the room. Those supports are counterfeit. The saleswoman's smile remained in place through what was clearly a private emergency. The stranger introduced herself as Sol, an independent inspector. She had evidence that the evacuation corridor narrowed below legal width behind a false wall and that the display supports carried forged certification stamps. The showroom manager did not challenge her report. He ordered security to take the tablet. Lock the files remotely. They are mirrored in 3 places. Breaking this copy only improves the criminal charge. One guard seized her wrist anyway. The second kicked Kai's wheel lock to clear him from the aisle. The platform shifted beneath them. A false support folded. Lost her footing near the open edge. Kai caught her forearm, locked his stronger arm around the chair, and drove his left foot down by instinct. The leg held just long enough for to find the platform with her other foot. Pain flashed through Kai's hips. He dropped fully into the chair. Pulled herself upright. Your salesperson said the support was reinforced. This is not the time, the manager snapped. It has become an excellent time. The guards advanced again. Plainclothes officers entered from both showroom doors. Their leader secured Aria's evidence, separated the guards, and sealed the platform. He gave Aria receipt numbers for every copied file before she even asked, which made her narrow her eyes as if competence were suspicious. Only after the manager was removed did Rowan approach him. Captain Rowan Hale, I'd like a private conversation. Marketplace transfers, a helmet's registration, and Kai's medical rehab account had led his task force straight to last piece standing. If you want my account, no. Involve Mina, and the answer turns hostile. We want neither. Everdawn's neural recovery was surfacing worldwide. 500 government trainees are trapped at Glassmeyer. We need one safe corridor. 500 trained accounts. Stopped by the one problem only a former 4-copper goblin knew how to solve. Rowan offered lawful financial privacy, verified housing, and security for Mina, no strings attached. Kai set his terms, sealed identity, no passwords, no directing his progression, no pressure on Mina. Rowan agreed. You expected me to refuse account access. I would have. Kaya gave them a 30-minute window and no map. When the 500 reached Glassmeyer, the road was cleared, burned spider nests, dead vipers lining the ridge, a warning carved into stone. Movement feeds venom. Wait. Rowan hauled one impatient tank out of a live wire stack by the collar. 500 accounts crossed without one death. Ghosts. Blood-only tracks led away from the basin, big enough that trainees assumed a regional boss had cleared it. Rowan's report corrected them publicly. The corridor belongs to last piece standing, and sent the promised protections in a private channel. Kai confirmed the corridor was closed. Neither man called it friendship. It was more useful, boundaries, proof, no owner. Kai returned to Rook's crown. The Ashbone captain met him at the territory gate. Brack, Nyx, and Pearl stood behind it, weapons raised toward the throne hall. A black root had pushed through the stone floor. It had no entry on the regional bestiary. Pale mist leaked from the bark. At its tip, a closed flower bud pulsed like a sleeping heart. The server darkened. World event discovered, Hollow Bloom. When the first flower opens, mist will cover all linked regions. World-born bloodlines will be temporarily strengthened. 8 root pillars must be destroyed before the bloom reaches the capital. Across the territory map, 8 black points appeared. Something moved inside the flower. 4 small silhouettes curled around a deeper ember of violet light. Kai rested one red hand on the Saber King's axe. The government had just paid him to open a road. Everdawn was about to grow one through the entire server. The first monster Kai killed after standing on his real legs dropped a dress. He had returned to Rook's crown expecting the black bud over the summit to begin the promised hollow bloom. The bud remained closed, the event timer remained blank, and an Emberhawk attacked him while he waited. Technically, the Dawnwing Mantle was a combat cloak. It granted 4 seconds of controlled gliding and enough wind resistance to keep its owner's hair arranged during the fall. Its defense was worse than Kai's current shoulder guards, its heat resistance was insulting, and the gold feathers along the hem announced the wearer from approximately every direction. Then he noticed the cosmetic tag. Kai listed it before the dead Emberhawk finished dissolving. The first bid arrived in 11 seconds. A fashion guild doubled it. 2 corporate teams joined because apparently their representatives could not enter battle unless their capes had sponsorship potential, and then Seira Win found the listing during her broadcast. Jules Perrin studied the preview beside her. That amount could equip an entire poison raid. Seira turned the model until the mantle released a spray of dawn-colored feathers. Yes, but could the raid look like this? The raid would be alive. Alive is not the same as memorable. Seira borrowed the public preview and jumped from a fountain wall in first light. Cloak carried her across the plaza for 4 glowing seconds. Someone clipped the flight, someone else slowed it down, and by the time her boots touched the street, the highest bid had gained another digit. Jules closed her valuation sheet. I dislike how often your least practical opinions become market evidence. On Rook's crown, Kai watched the price climb while another Emberhawk dove at him. The crimson bulk of his blood oni form made a generous target. He waited until the bird committed, caught one burning wing, and redirected it into the mountain. Pain Furnace absorbed a portion of the impact and sent heat through his arms. One strike finished the bird. The mantle sold for more than the resistance gear that had kept 3 guild leaders alive in Glassmire. Humanity had been given swords, magic, and access to a second world. Within a week, it had rediscovered luxury fashion. I approved. Luxury fashion was paying Mina's debt. The Emberhawks offered a second reward. Ancestral Hunger had been collecting thin strands of their essence with every kill, and the latest one completed an inheritable trait. By-sight instinct may be archived or equipped. Kai had limited trait space. Keeping every useful bloodline active was impossible, which was the game's polite way of ensuring he could become a legendary monster without also becoming a traveling zoological accident. He archived a minor scent trait and equipped Farsight. The mountain unfolded in detail. He could follow heat through old footprints, see movement inside distant haze, and count the fletching on a scout's arrows 400 meters away. The ability did not add new eyes or replace his horns with a telescope. His black irises merely narrowed and the world became painfully specific. That was how he noticed the mountain bleeding. Black veins ran beneath the soil of Rook's crown. They converged under a bed of white flowers where something enormous pulsed once every few seconds. Kaye ordered his branded followers back and dug with the edge of his cleaver until he uncovered a root as wide as his waist. Its bark felt like closed skin. It led to the same black bud the system had warned him about before logout. He touched it. Every white flower opened at once. The summit split around a black stem. It rose past the cliffs, unfolded beneath the clouds, and became a flower large enough to cast half the mountain into shadow. Dark pollen rolled across the linked regions. Far below, 8 roots punched through forests, lakes, ruined temples, and one guild camp whose members received no compensation for choosing the wrong picnic spot. The announcement reached every player on the shard. Hollow Bloom has begun. 8 Heartroot pillars have awakened. Event duration, 10 hours. Experience gains doubled, claiming the pillars will reveal the hidden inheritance. A second notice appeared only for Kai. World-born blood resonates with hollow pollen. All world-born attributes doubled for the event. Branded followers within your pack mandate receive the same resonance. Power tightened through his blood oni body. His horns lengthened. Thank you, R2. Pain Furnace's capacity doubled, and every member of his hunting band straightened as the pollen touched them. Pearl, the smallest goblin scout, looked down at arms twice their normal size and immediately tried lifting a boulder. The boulder did not move. The scout glanced around to see whether anyone had noticed. Kai looked away out of professional courtesy. First Light's northern road filled within minutes. Ra moved her stream to the gate while guilds assembled under banners and independent parties fought for map space. Vostre climbed onto a supply wagon and announced that Crownforge would coordinate the event. This was impressive because nobody had coordinated Crownforge into being in charge. Voss marked one route for every major guild, gave his own people the shortest road, and described the arrangement as equal. Smaller guild leaders objected. He promised to resolve disputes, which was convenient when he had designed most of them. Jules studied his public map. The western route is closest to Crownforge. Maybe he drew the routes by accident, Ra said. Then his accidents have excellent legal counsel. Kai could see a heart route none of their scouts had marked. Farsight found it behind a curtain of drifting pollen, protected by terrain that looked impassable from the road. He equipped the Dawnwing Mantle's cheaper duplicate, ran off the edge of Rook's crown, and glided into the valley. The cloak did not make the landing dignified. It made the landing survivable, which was close enough. The first guardian pulled itself from the earth. Thorn plates covered its body in overlapping rings, feeder roots held its feet to the ground, and its health bar contained enough zeros to turn a beginner raid into a memorial service. Kai attacked the chest. His cleaver split 3 plates. They grew back before his next swing. Pain Furnace helped them survive the counterattack, but it could not convert more damage once its cap filled. The Guardian hit hard enough to make that limit arrive quickly. Web Snare held one arm for 6 seconds. Live Wire Venom slowed the regeneration without stopping it. When Kai ordered his followers to circle, the creature rooted itself deeper and began drawing health from the valley. The fight stopped being about damage. It became an argument over plumbing. Kai assigned Brack and the shield line to hold the Guardian. Nyx and Pearl followed the feeder roots and cut where they entered the ear. A live wire venom coated each wound so the fibers could not close without hurting the Guardian again. Whenever it turned, the 2 Ashbone Hexers struck the exposed joints and forced it back toward Kai. 2 followers entered their 8-hour defeat recovery. A third lost most of his health and refused to retreat until Kai repeated the order with his name. Pain Furnace emptied. Cody drank the last high-grade recovery potion from his belt and used its brief surge to tear out the final feeder root. The Guardian tried to heal. Nothing answered. Kai drove the cleaver through its exposed heart. The heart root opened like a seed pod and offered him a choice. A mature Thornmaw could serve him until the event ended, or a permanent Bramble Heart Fawn could bind itself to his territory and grow over time. The Thornmaw was immediately useful. The fawn had no attack skill, poor defense, and a note warning that young living keys required food and supervision. Kai selected the fawn. Rook's crown already contained an armed monster tribe. One creature that did not begin every relationship by testing armor penetration seemed healthy. A calf-sized animal stepped from the root. Bark covered its narrow legs and 2 green buds showed where antlers would eventually grow. It pressed its head against Kai's hand. Then, it tried to eat the hem of his auction duplicate. The system announced that Last Piece Standing had claimed the first heart root. Public chat spent 30 seconds celebrating the first clear, another 30 asking which guild had done it, and the following 5 minutes arguing about whether a monster account should be allowed to own a baby deer. Kai was already moving toward the second root. That guardian stood inside 4 rotating seals. If even one seal went dark, bark armor closed over its entire body. Kai stationed a follower on each point and ordered them to rotate whenever the seals changed color. His oldest goblin fighters understood immediately. The newer beasts understood eventually. The Bramble Heart Fawn understood that the glowing circles were warm and lay down on the nearest one. Their first attempt failed in 18 seconds. On the second, a follower rotated early. On the third, one of the newer goblin recruits interpreted "hold the seal" as "stab the light." The seal did not object, but it also did not remain active. Kai stopped trying to shout perfect instructions into a changing battlefield. Pack mandate carried intent better than language. He focused on the shape of the formation. 4 points, 1 rotation, no gaps, and pushed that pattern through the Dominion brand. His followers moved. Not as puppets. They corrected one another. Pearl dragged the fawn from the wrong circle. Brack delayed his step until the newest recruit reached the next point. When one fighter stumbled, the nearest follower filled the space without waiting for Kai. All 4 seals burned. The Guardian opened. Kai let its first strike land, filled the remainder of Pain Furnace, and returned the stored force through its exposed chest. The second heart root released a cinder-winged chick. It resembled a red ball with wings, smoke, and opinions. It climbed onto the fawn, spread both wings, and behaved as though it had conquered something. The second announcement changed the event's mood. Full human raids were still learning the first Guardian patterns. Last Piece Standing had claimed 2 roots and was apparently building a nursery. Crownforge sent a supply convoy to correct this unacceptable distribution of rewards. Their captain blocked the canyon and demanded that Kai surrender both living keys for organized shard use. The chick pecked his armored boot before Kai could respond. The captain kicked at it. Kai caught his ankle. The man's expression changed around the same time his health bar did. Crownforge attacked. Their formation was disciplined, their equipment expensive, and their escape route, a narrow canyon they had thoughtfully blocked with their own wagons. Web Snare sealed the rear. Nyx and Pearl pulled the lead riders down while Break wedged the center in place. Pain Furnace climbed as spears hit him, but instead of spending the power on the front rank, Kai drove it into the ground. The shock threw players against their supply carts and broke open half the cargo. The convoy lasted 4 minutes. Kai arrived with almost no consumables. He left with potions, food, event maps, 2 better shields for his followers, and enough binding silk to reach the next route. Crownforge had attempted to nationalize his hatchlings and had accidentally sponsored the expedition. The Cinderwing chick ate one of their ration labels. The Bramble Heart Fawn ate the ration. Kai opened Seira's broadcast while his followers sorted the rest. Jules had taken over the public map. The Northeast group retreated, she said. The Southern Guardian reset. 2 guilds are fighting at the Tide Basin. Should we help them? Seira asked. We should avoid becoming the 3rd guild fighting at the Tide Basin. Kai looked toward it. By the time he arrived, both guilds had defeated each other more thoroughly than the Guardian had. Their flags lay in the mud. The Heartroot boss remained at 1/3 health, surrounded by ownerless potions and weapons. Scrounger's luck had never looked so much like financial planning. Kai ordered Pearl to secure the drops only after the ownership timers expired. Then they finished the Guardian the two raids had kindly prepared. The third seed pod released a tide-glass otter pup inside a floating sphere of water. It blinked at Kai, rolled onto its back, and stole a potion from his pouch before its binding mark had fully appeared. 3 Heartroots were down. Ancestral Hunger kept its own count of the same 3 boxes. Level threshold, cleared since Moon Valley. Compatible essence, 3 roots deep and still climbing. Elite Catalyst, the box stayed empty. 2 down. 1 to go. The root's inner chamber also contained something that was not part of the public reward, a violet-black coal edged in silver, beating like a tiny heart. Veil Ember obtained, compatible with an unclaimed Eclipse lineage, additional requirements unknown. Ancestral Hunger reacted so strongly that shadow rippled over Kai's crimson arms. Then the effect vanished. A catalyst without the lineage trial was only an expensive rock, and the system refused to reveal what came next. Barsight gave him the answer before the menu did. Across the western basin, Boss's raid moved behind another guild's formation. Crownforged scouts cut healing tethers one at a time. Their tanks waited outside the Guardian's reach while supposed allies took every hit. Voss had written the event pact. Now he was using it as a menu. Kai lifted the Tideglass pup out of his potion pouch and handed it to the fawn. The pup immediately climbed onto the chick. The chick protested. None of this improved their speed. We are taking the 4th route, Kai said. His followers turned west. Behind them, 3 guilds discovered that every unattended potion in the Tide Basin had disappeared. There were many mysteries in Everdawn. That one had very small wet paw prints. 3 routes were his. The 4th still burned untaken, and Voss meant to reach it first. Voss had written the event pact, which apparently convinced him it applied to everyone except Voss. Crownforge's western raid waited behind 2 allied guilds while the Heartroot Guardian tore through them. Their scouts cut a support rope here, pulled a healing ward a few steps backward there, and attracted fresh root beasts toward whichever formation looked healthiest. Every mistake happened at exactly the right time to improve Crownforge's position. Voss did not charge until the Guardian had less than 1/4 of its health. He still arrived second. Kai came down the ridge with a crimson event aura around his blood oni form and 3 baby beasts arranged badly across his followers. The Bram Bullheart Fawn carried the Cinderwing chick. The chick carried nothing because responsibility had not survived the selection process. The Tideglass pup rolled beside them in its sphere of water, wearing 2 stolen potion straps like trophies. Several players took one look at Kai's species line and shouted that a secret event boss had spawned. It now read, life, it now read, last beast standing, Blood Oni Reaver, Meyer Proven Pack Lord, crowned world born of the far-sighted Venom line. Kai's account name remained perfectly manageable. His species description looked as if the system was billing by the word. Voss pointed his raid toward him. Protect the Heartroot from the monster. The allied guilds, still bleeding because of Crownforge's assistance, considered that instruction. Then most of them stepped aside. Kai approved of their developing judgment. Web Snare crossed the root basin. Crownforge's front rank hit it at full speed and stopped. Nyx and Pearl cut around the immobilized shields while the Ashbone Hexers bombarded the supply line. Brock reached the final active seal and planted both feet on it. The Guardian opened its armor. Voss ordered every ranged player to fire at Kai. Arrows and spells drove Pain Furnace to its cap in seconds. More attacks struck after it filled, and those hurt normally. Blood, Oni regeneration slowed the loss. It did not turn health into a philosophical concept. Kai spent the stored force on the Guardian instead. The cleaver entered below its lowest thorn plate. Livewire venom spread into the root channels. The Guardian jerked, and every movement made the poison worse. It tried to plant itself, but the 3 guilds Voss had betrayed cut the feeder roots before Crownforge could stop them. One more strike broke the heart. The seed pod opened under Kai's hand. A Gloamfang cub stepped out. Its fur appeared to be made from night, its eyes were silver, and black flowers opened beneath each paw. It looked at the other free living keys, decided the Tideglass pup was least offensive, and climbed into the water sphere beside it. 4 marks ignited around Kai. 4 living bloodlines have answered one world-born claimant. Hidden inheritance unlocked, the nursery below. The ground opened. Kai, the hatchlings, and every branded follower inside Pac-Man dropped through a tunnel of roots. Boss lunged for the opening and caught nothing except one black flower. The stone closed before Crownforge could follow. They landed in a cavern containing 4 cradles. Each cradle carried a different symbol: branch, flame, tide, and moon. At the center stood a tall figure in a robe made from overlapping shadows. Its face changed every time Kaie focused on it. First an old man, then a masked woman, then Kai himself as a starved goblin runt. That last face smiled. 4 lives purchase 1 inheritance, it said. Place them in the cradles. Kai read the trial description. Offer 4 living keys. Survive the brood taker. Inherit the veil. The wording did not promise that the keys would survive the offering. Kaya looked at the fawn pressing against Brake's leg, the chick trying to set one cradle on fire before being placed inside it, the otter pup checking Pearl's pouches, and the cub hiding in Nyx's shadow. He closed the confirmation window. Alternative route, he said. The figure's borrowed face split into a wider smile. Refusal forfeits the inheritance. That was not my question. And he selected the tiny challenge rune beneath the acceptance seal. The system revealed the terms it had apparently hoped nobody would read. Predator's claim. Defeat the brood taker without surrendering a living key. All keys must remain within their cradles. Failure destroys the veil ember and expels the challenger. Death of a key is permanent. There it was. A route for anyone stubborn enough to distrust large friendly buttons. Kai accepted. 4 hatchlings settled into their cradles. Living light rose around them. The faceless figure unfolded into a cloud of black wings, and something much larger descended through the cavern roof. Na rose, echo of the black dragon, landed without making a sound. He had no fixed body. 4 dragon silhouettes overlapped in the same space, each facing a different cradle. One breathed dark fire, one moved through shadow, one created false copies of Kai's followers, and the last remained almost invisible except when it attacked. His health bar was only slightly less offensive than the concept of feeding him 4 babies. Kai ordered the followers into 4 teams. Brack guarded the fawn. Nyx took the Glomfang cradle. Pearl protected the Tide Glass pup, an assignment complicated by the pup stealing his emergency potion. The Ashbone captain held the Cinderwing cradle while the remaining followers rotated between pressure points. The first dragon breath erased half of Brack's shield. The second came from behind. Kai took the hit and filled Pain Furnace, but the blow drove him across the cavern. Before he could rise, Rose split into 8 silhouettes. Farsight showed heat in all of them. The dragon's illusions copied temperature, motion, and even the dust displaced by their claws. Kai attacked the closest. His cleaver passed through smoke. All 8 answered. Pain Furnace hit its cap. His health fell below half. 2 followers entered defeat recovery, and the Cinderwing chick left its cradle to bite a dragon shadow on the nose. Every seal reset. The trial did not expel them. It restored the chamber, returned the hatchlings, and deducted 1/3 of the Veil Ember's light. 3 attempts. Kai sat among his followers while Narose returned to the roof. The game had shown him 8 identical dragons and expected him to locate the real one. Farsight failed. Scent failed. Scent failed. Live wire venom could reveal a moving body, but he had to hit the correct body first. Then he noticed the Glomfang cub staring into an empty corner. It did not watch the dragon images. It watched the shadows they failed to cast. On the second attempt, Kai ignored his own senses and followed the cub. Whenever its ears turned, Nyx sent the direction through pack mandate. Kai struck what appeared to be empty space. His cleaver hit scales. Rose screamed, and 7 false bodies flickered. The fight became possible. Possible remained several neighborhoods away from easy. Dark fire threatened all 4 cradles at once. Correcting Kai had enough web snare for 3 immobilizations, so he spent each one only when the dragon faced a weakened team. The Ashbone Hexers did not aim at Narrows. They bombarded the ceiling roots until thick curtains of sap fell across the arena. False dragons passed through without disturbance. The real dragon pushed sap aside. Brack lost his shield and used a crown-forged door instead. Curl recovered his potion from the otter pup, drank half, and gave the other half back. Nyx moved between 2 cradles so quickly that Pac Mandate briefly counted him in both formations. Kai let Narose strike him until Pain Furnace filled, then refused to release it. The dragon had learned the Blood Oni pattern. Every time the furnace reached capacity, Narose withdrew and waited for the temporary strength to fade. On the next pass, Kai pretended to spend it on a shadow, staggered, and left the Cinderwing cradle apparently exposed. Narose committed. The chick opened its beak and released a spark. It was not enough to hurt a dragon. It was enough to light the sap coating the real dragon's chest. Kai released everything Pain Furnace held. His cleaver broke the first layer of scales. Livewire venom entered the wound. Narose launched himself toward the ceiling, and the poison increased with every movement. Web snare caught one rear leg. The dragon tore free, losing more health to the action. All 4 living keys began to glow. The fawn's cradle sent green roots over Brake's ruined shield. The chick's fire climbed Kai's blade. Water from the otter's seal hardened into a bright ring around Narose's wing. The cub's moon cradle pulled every false shadow into one place. For a few seconds, there was only one dragon. Kai reached it. The final strike opened Narose from shoulder to heart. Black blood rose from the wound instead of falling. 4 streams entered the living key cradles. A 5th crossed the room and burned a mark into Kai's chest. Narose collapsed into a single drop of darkness. Dormant black dragon blood obtained. 4 beast embers recorded. Shadow bloodline essence obtained. Narose, Eclipse Broodtaker. The hatchlings tumbled out of their cradles alive. The Cinderwing chick landed upside down, recovered with dignity unavailable to witnesses, and pecked the dead dragon Echo. The followers defeated inside the trial had also returned, but penalties covered half the group. The 2 lost at the first pillar remained on their ordinary 8-hour timers. Most of the supplies were gone. The veil ember had dimmed to a sliver. A third failure would have destroyed the entire path. The faceless keeper appeared above Naurose's remains. This time it wore no borrowed face. "Choose the blood that follows you," it said. Ancestral hunger split into 3 branches. Kaie read the previews twice. Dread Oni Tyrant deepened Pain Furnace into a bottomless damage reserve, strength and regeneration, and no way to walk into a human city without triggering it. Verdant Beast Lord chained his life to the 4 keys and tripled their growth. Kai watched the preview body, fur, then scale, then no human silhouette left by the 3rd stage. Eclipse Rock. Shasa offered speed, shadow afterimages, restraint chains, and a mortal mask that could carry him through a checkpoint with no threat icon at all. Kai's eyes stopped there. Then the price. Choosing one erased the other 2 for good, no swapping later. Every essence he'd banked since Glassmire would burn to fund it. Kai counted what that meant. 4 traits could stay active, the rest locked in his archive until he found a way back in. Pain Furnace would shrink to survive the change. Rock Shah saw blood didn't leave room for brute force. Kai studied the human silhouette inside Mortal Mask. Last Beast standing was already too recognizable. Crownforge had tried to seize his living keys because it knew exactly what he was. If someone ever connected the monster to Mina, raw strength would not protect her identity. He chose Eclipse Rock Shasa. The veil ember sank into his heart. His blood Oni body did not receive new decorations. It came apart. Crimson skin dissolved into black light. His heavy horns curved back and shortened. Dense muscle drew into a leaner frame covered by dark fur that drank the glow from the cradles. When he moved, 2 shadow arms followed a fraction of a second behind him, copying his posture without becoming physical until he commanded them. Pain Furnace narrowed from a roaring reservoir into a smaller, faster-burning chamber. Pack Mandate expanded. Web Snare and Livewire Venom entered the archive, while Mirehide, Scrounger's Luck, Pack Mandate, and Pain Furnace remained active. The system added a new movement art, Eclipse Step, and a control skill, Shadow Grasp. Both consumed core energy quickly. Neither was a free answer, which meant they were probably useful. Then it displayed his new species line. Last piece. Standing, Eclipse Rock, Shasa, 4-key Veil Heir, Black Dragon Trial Victor, Meyer, Proven Pack Lord, Blood Furnace Bearer, Lord of Rook's Crown. The account name still occupied 3 words. The title underneath could be seen from another postal district. Kai activated Mortal Mask. Dark fur withdrew. His claws became human hands. The world adjusted around a tall young man with black hair, gray eyes, and a face close enough to his real one to feel familiar without being identical. He wore a plain dark coat generated by the mask, and no city threat icon appeared beside his name. The form required 1 active trait slot and steadily consumed energy. Taking heavy damage would fracture it. Human guards would see a player. Close inspection by a specialized skill could still reveal world-born blood. It was a disguise, not a new life. Kai registered the identity as Grey Rook. For the first time since entering Everdawn, he crossed the chamber on human feet. His body outside the helmet still needed rails, therapy, and Mina's help. Inside the game, however, the weakest goblin in Mudgrave Warren had learned how to wear the shape of the people who once hunted him for 4 copper. Grey Rook could walk through a human city now. Last piece, standing still, had a war to finish in this one. Kai left the nursery below wearing his real monster form. Grey Rook could wait. The Western Basin currently contained 7 fighting guilds, 2 wounded Heartroot Guardians, and Vostre explaining to anyone with a camera that Crownforge had nearly completed the hidden trial before Last Piece. Standing stole it. The claim would have been stronger if Voss had known what the hidden trial was. Sayra's stream caught the moment Kai emerged. Her audience saw a sleek, black Rockshaw saw step from the closing root gate with 4 living keys at his heels and 8 active branded followers behind him. The 2 defeated during the first pillar fight were still serving their recovery timers. 2 shadow arms unfolded over his shoulders when Crownforge's nearest archers raised their bows. Chat required 9 seconds to decide this was a new event boss. When the species line appeared, chat required another 9 seconds to finish reading it. Voss recognized the account name halfway through and ordered his people to hold fire. Several had already attacked. Their arrows struck a shadow copy, passed through, and buried themselves in Crownforge's own supply wagon. Eclipse Step placed Kai beside the shooters before the first arrow stopped vibrating. The skill was not teleportation. It accelerated him through connected shadow and charged enough core energy to discourage casual use. The archers did not know that. From their perspective, a monster had disappeared from the root gate, appeared in their formation, and grown 2 extra arms made from knife. The Reed dropped their bows without being asked. Kai tested Shadow Grasp on the 4th. The man's own shadow climbed his legs and pinned him to the ground. It held for 6 seconds, less against strong targets, and ended immediately when Kie struck him. That was enough. Control did not need to last forever. It needed to last until Break arrived. Brack arrived. The last archer joins ground. Kaie moved through Crownforge without chasing kills. Shadow Grasp held shield leaders while Nyx and Pearl disarmed them. Eclipse Step carried him past front ranks and into healers, where a short display of claws persuaded most players to stop casting. His reduced pain furnace absorbed only a fraction of the incoming damage, but the Rakshasa saw did not stand still long enough to need the old capacity. He had not become stronger in every way. He had become harder to solve. Boss retreated from the basin. Two smaller guilds immediately attacked his rear over disputed drops. A third attacked them. The event pact finished collapsing with the efficiency of a building whose architect had charged extra for gravity. 3 heart roots remained and linked shard parties were closing on all of them. Kai could have left. He had the Veil inheritance, 4 living keys, and enough dragon blood inside ancestral hunger to make the system display warning symbols. Instead, he looked at the independent groups Voss had used as shields. Most had lost their consumables. If foreign raids claimed every remaining route, the local shard would receive none of the closing rewards. He opened the regional channel. Unclaimed parties take the south route. Healers from broken raids regroup at the eastern marker, a linked shard entrance. One guild leader asked why anyone should follow a monster. Kai sent the route map Farsight had built, including guardian patterns, seal timing, and 3 safe recovery zones. The same leader asked where to stand. For the next 7 hours, Kie kept incoming raids away from the local groups. He did not defeat every player who crossed the boundary. He made crossing intolerable. Web Snare came out of the archive for 1 hour while Mirhide went dormant. It sealed 2 approaches and forced armored parties into single-file routes. Shadow Grasp caught whoever tried cutting the silk. False Rakshasa saw after images ran along the ridges, making scouts report 3 separate monster armies where Kai had 1 tired band and a bird sitting on a deer. The Cinderwing Chick's contribution to misinformation was excellent. It set fire to things in several directions. When a full-linked shard raid pushed through the North Pass, Kai allowed its tanks to enter, trapped the healers outside, and offered the leader a choice: retreat with their bound equipment intact or continue toward 10 local parties who had now finished their guardian and were looking for somewhere to spend the remaining event time. The raid left. The local groups claimed 2 routes. Crownford stole the last finish from a weakened alliance, which started another battle exactly as the timer expired. Hollow Bloom folded. The enormous flower over Rook's crown closed into a black seed. Pollen cleared from the roads. Experience returned to normal, and players discovered that 10 hours of double progression had produced approximately 12 hours of grudges. The closing rewards included regional access to a future world route vault. Kai received the Veil inheritance, 4 beast embers, and a territory notice that made sleep impossible. Rook's crown contains the first bloom seed. Claim protection expires in 48 hours. Rival world-born claimants may challenge while the seed stabilizes. Leaving the territory removes pack mandate's defensive bonus. Kai stared at the notice. He had stayed through the entire event. The game thanked him by beginning a second timer. The first challengers arrived within 20 minutes. Some were actual world-born monsters, attracted by the seed. Others were human guilds carrying counterfeit claim brands, and the optimism produced by not having met the new Rakshasa yet. Kai defeated the monsters, took their essence, and drove the players from the mountain. Then another group arrived. Then another. Kai left his helmet on. Hours became a day. He rotated followers through recovery, fed the living keys, reinforced the ascent routes, and slept in short intervals while the Ashbone captain watched the outer boundary. Every system alert woke him. Every attack taught the next group a slightly more expensive lesson. Eclipse abilities reduced the effort of each defense but created a different problem. Core energy returned slowly. Using Mortal Mask, Eclipse Step, and Shadow Grasp together could empty him in minutes. Kai learned to place ordinary ambushes first and spend shadow energy only when the formation broke. Pack Mandate handled distance. Yeah! Illusions redirected scouts. Rakshasa power became most effective when nobody knew which part of the battlefield contained Kaie. By the second day, players had begun calling Rook's crown the mountain that lied. One attacking guild followed false torchlight into a dead end and waited 40 minutes for a battle that was occurring behind them. Another spent every detection scroll exposing Pearl, who had been instructed to look suspicious while carrying an empty sack. Pearl performed this duty with alarming talent. Tim. Captain Rowan Hale reached Kai through the helmet's external emergency channel. Your medical monitor has recorded continuous full dive exposure beyond the recommended limit, Rowan said. Log out. 31 hours remain. That was not a question. Kai watched a ridge where 3 false shadows were leading another scout party away from the real path. Then it was poorly designed for negotiation. In exhaled once. The sound belonged to a man reconsidering every choice that had placed him on a call with a sleep-deprived monster landlord. His team wanted Hollowbloom route data. Government trainees had entered the event and discovered how little standard combat instruction helped against adaptive world-born enemies. Rowan offered an official watch rotation using players from his unit. They would guard the outer approaches while Kai slept. Kai asked what access they expected in return. Your annotated event map and guardian observations. No territory permissions. Agreed. No Dominion brand trials with my followers. Agreed. No access to my evolution menu, market account, or helmet telemetry beyond the medical safety alarm. Rowan paused at the last condition. I want permission for an emergency disconnect if your vitals cross the clinical threshold. Kai wanted to reject it. Then he imagined Mina, finding him after 2 days beneath a helmet, unresponsive because he had protected a virtual mountain more carefully than his own body. Clinical threshold only, he said, documented, not operational convenience. Rowan agreed. In exchange, he added identity shielding for Grey Rook to the same sealed file that protected Last Piece Standing. The government would know both identities. Corporations, guild sponsors, and ordinary account investigators would not. The bargain contained no friendship and no ownership. That's why it worked. Rowan's unit arrived at dusk. Kai gave them trap maps, safe paths, and exactly enough authority to signal his followers without commanding them. Then he logged out. His body punished the decision immediately. Fight hurt. His mouth was dry, his shoulders cramped, and every muscle below his waist felt as though it had been asked to remember a language after years of silence. He drank water, ate the meal Mina had left in the refrigerator, and slept for 11 hours. When he woke, the warmth in his legs remained. Kai locked his chair beside the rehabilitation rail. He sent the session notice to his therapist, positioned his feet, and pulled himself upright. His knees held. One supported step carried his left foot forward. A second brought the right. The movement was ugly, slow, and powered mostly by both arms gripping the rail, but it belonged to him. He reached the end, rested until the shaking eased, and turned. On the return trip, he tried releasing one hand. His balance shifted. Panic tightened his back. For half a second, he expected the floor to rush upward. It did not. Kai let go with the second hand. He stood without support. 1 breath. 2. His right knee folded on the third. He caught the rail and lowered himself into the chair, heart pounding hard enough to make the medical display ask whether he needed help. Several supported steps. 2 breaths alone. Not walking. Yeah, right. But when Mina eventually opened the door and saw him standing, he wanted the moment to last longer than a system tooltip. His phone showed 9 missed calls from her. Kai called immediately. Mina answered without her usual attempt to make exhaustion sound cheerful. Crownforge had targeted Bright Harbor, the company guild she played with after work. Their advancement required carrying a dawn ember across an old bridge. Selka Meyer had occupied the route, destroyed the flame, and broadcast every failed attempt. She says nobody allied with Crownforge's enemies gets to advance, Mina said. We were not their enemy until she decided we were. Guild politics was efficient that way. Powerful people announced a feud, and weaker people learned they had volunteered. Are you safe outside the game? Kai asked. Yes, I am angry, not injured. Good. Good? Anger is easier to fix. Last Piece Standing could erase Crownforge from the bridge. He could also draw a perfect line from the server's famous monster to Mina's private account. Grey Rook could protect her. Problem was that Grey had existed for less than a day, possessed no public record, and had never entered a human city. If he appeared only when Mina needed help, even Voss might solve that pattern. Kai opened the Grey profile. Before his friend rescued Mina, his friend needed a life. Grey Rook began his public life by letting 3 beginners save him from a level 4 burrower. He found Ari, Sol, Tamsin Reed, and Or N. Pike on the road to First Light, surrounded by brass-backed creatures. Kaye could have ended the fight with one sweep. Instead, he drew a plain iron sword, entered at the edge, and contributed the sort of damage expected from a late-starting human player. Tamsin pulled a burrower away from him. Or N called targets in order. Finished the last one, wiped dirt from her blade, and stared at Grey for longer than politeness required. Kai knew her from the housing office. Had tried to stop strangers from buying unsafe apartments. Security had tried to remove her. Rowan's team had arrived after Kie intervened, and the resulting scene had turned one corrupt sales floor into a criminal investigation with complimentary refreshments. Had heard Kai speak. Mortal Mask changed his face, height, posture, and game signature. It did not change the pause he used before saying something unhelpful. Have we met? She asked. I get that a lot. Tamsin looked over his starter coat. From creditors? Mostly from people who think I have money. That reduced Arya's suspicion without killing it. She invited him to travel with them, and Grey accepted. They assumed his poor equipment meant he had started late or lost his group. Kai encouraged both explanations by asking where the city was. First Light Bastion struck him harder than any monster. Thousands of human avatars crowded the streets. Class vendors demonstrated spells above shop roofs. Guild recruiters shouted over merchants. Players ran upstairs without measuring each step, moved around one another without rails, and treated balance as something the world provided for free. Grey climbed the first staircase easily. A child-sized avatar rushed past him. Kai shifted his weight, avoided the collision, and kept moving. Everdawn followed the command his real body was only beginning to relearn. For one dangerous moment, he wanted to abandon the plan, find an empty road, and run until Mortal Mask emptied his core. Called from the landing. Grey stopped. He had come to create a history, not borrow a life. Most of the city was gathering at the Tower of Measures. 3 famous beginners were challenging fresh records, including Rhett Tall, the current #1. His portrait hung above the entrance at a size normally reserved for political leaders and people selling questionable supplements. Or, and read the rules, clear each measure before the sandglass empties. The gate opens when all enemies are defeated. Kai noticed what the rule did not say. It did not say the challenger had to leave when the gate opened. Gray registered as last piece standing. The first floor contained weak echoes and one exit. He defeated them in seconds. The gate opened. He waited. When the sandglass reached its final quarter, another wave appeared. Each echo dropped a bell coin. Gray killed the wave, waited again, and received one more before the tower forced him upward. Outside, spectators saw an under-equipped stranger spending several minutes on the easiest floor. "He is stuck," Tamsin said. Watched his health. "He is not taking damage." Or, N opened old records and compared clear speed with tower earnings. A small difference appeared in every unusually long run. "Late spawns," he said. Tamsin placed a cheap wager on Gray reaching the 4th floor. Glanced at her. "If he fails, I lose 1 repair fee," Tamsin said. "If 4N is right, we can afford dinner." Inside, Kai would have respected the analysis. He farmed each measure until its timer expired. Rhett and the other celebrated challengers completed their runs and exited while Gray was apparently struggling on floor 3D. Laughter continued until his marker reached floor 4. On floor 5, Mortal Mask's ongoing energy cost began to matter. Gray's reactions slowed. "Aye!" An echo hit his shoulder, and the crowd finally saw his health fall. Kai collected the last bell coins, stopped the run, and exited with the founder's writ. At the same moment, a scheduled post appeared from Last Piece Standing's public market account. Someone says the Tower of Measures is profitable. Human cities remain strange.ot. Ra read the post on stream while the anonymous challenger walked from the tower. Anyone attempting to connect Grey Rook to the famous world-born seller now had 2 identities commenting on the same event. Rettal stood outside. He pointed at Gray's cheap sword. "That equipment cannot pass the 3rd measure." Gray kept walking. "Explain what exploit you used." "No." Red had prepared accusations, demands, and probably a speech. He had not prepared for a 1-syllable answer. "You expect the city to accept an impossible result?" Gray looked up at Rhett's enormous portrait. "Accept whatever helps." The record still moved. Tamsin followed him with the delighted expression of someone who had won dinner and acquired gossip. N carried several hundred questions but appeared to be arranging them by importance. Waited until Gray opened the founder's writ. It required 50 silver and 4 founding signatures. Kai now had the silver because he had spent the tower challenge farming instead of performing for strangers. What he lacked was 3 people willing to sign a legal game document for a man they had known less than an hour. "You can leave after registration," he told them. "I need the attached guild challenge." And read every condition. Tamsin signed before he finished explaining the first. Held her hand above the final line. "If this becomes a shell guild for fraud, I will expose you." The promise made Kai trust her more. "Then stay close." She signed. Tamsin suggested names involving eternity, blades, dragons, blood, and one sunrise that appeared to be angry. And suggested 3 names so practical nobody remembered them long enough to vote. Chose Wayward Dawn. All 4 founders had reached First Light by routes they had not planned. Guild registration unlocked a party-scale tower trial. The recommended formation contained 10 players. Gray entered alone. The trial sent shield echoes down one lane, casters down another, and fast attackers toward an objective crystal. A party would divide roles. Kai divided himself. Raksha saw after images held the first lane just long enough for him to clear the second. Shadow Grasp pinned the caster leader while Eclipse Step carried him back to the crystal. He could not maintain every image as solid. Each one became physical only for a heartbeat, and every transition drained core energy. The run turned into a race between the tower and Mortal Mask. Kai reached the final wave nearly empty. He let one shield strike him, used the small burst pain furnace still provided, and sent the stored force through the objective lane. The last echo fell before Mortal Mask broke. Wayward Dawn ranked first among every guild founded that week. The display recalculated. Then it recalculated again, as though the tower hoped a second opinion would improve the situation. Recruitment requests flooded the guild channel. And muted it. Tamsin unmuted it. "People usually grow a number 1 guild," she told Gray. "I was considering selling it." Rejected 3 wealthy players offering donations for officer positions before he could respond. And separated common storage from restricted assets. Tamsin posted recruitment terms promising no purchased ranks and no protected harassment. The guild was 10 minutes old, and the 3 temporary founders were already preventing it from becoming Crown Forge. Gray made acting guild master, Tamsin recruitment officer, and/or N operations officer. Stared at the appointment. "You barely know us." "You read contracts. She likes people. He likes rules." "And you?" "I am frequently unavailable." He gave them control over ordinary membership, budgets, and activities, while reserving ownership transfers and declarations of war. Sent a private message asking if he had chosen her because of the housing office. Kaye answered with the truth missing only the dangerous half. I chose you because you protected strangers when it cost you something. Her suspicion remained. She accepted the position. Gray now had witnesses, a public record, and a guild history that did not begin with Mina. He also had a fact left dangling since the tower. The climb outside had already gone up on every board as last piece standings. The name meant something in first light. Arena footage, market stalls, followers who had never matched a face to it. Nobody there had connected that account to the quiet man currently negotiating a guild charter with 3 strangers. Ari A connected it herself. She had watched last piece standings arena clips the same week she signed Gray's charter, and the footwork in both matched. You're him, she said, the tower run, the arena, all of it. Gray could have denied it. Mortal Mask still held. Yes, he said it again in front of Tamsin and Oren, then let Sayra post the confirmation herself instead of guessing at it on stream. LS piece, standing and the anonymous tower run are the same account. I'm not hiding it anymore. US. The post reached Rhett Tall under his own portrait within the hour. He read it twice. The 4 copper goblin beat my record, under his own name this time. Boss Dre received it mid-council, forwarded from 3 scouts at once. He watched the same 9 seconds 4 times before he set his cup down. The Goblin, he said. It was the Goblin, the entire time. Selka Meyer read it off Crown Forge's channel while scraping ash from her gauntlets. She laughed once, with no humor in it. We priced his ears at 4 copper. He returned to the advancement bridge before Crown Forge could organize around the news. Bright Harbor's next attempt was already failing. Mina's guild carried a pale dawn ember in a glass lantern. They survived the first ambush and reached the bridge steps with half their escort. Selka Meyer dropped from the arch, smashed a black vial across the lantern and killed the flame. Crown Forge closed both exits. Selka planted her banner beside the broken lantern and started broadcasting. Leave Bright Harbor, she told Mina. Kneel under our banner and I will let you complete the rite. Mina looked at her defeated teammates. You keep asking people to kneel. Maybe nobody would stand with you by choice. Selka's smile vanished. Gray arrived before the next attack. He wore his plain coat, Wayward Dawn's small guild mark, and no visible high-level weapon. Voss recognized him immediately and sent a champion at him anyway, pride outlasting sense. Relight the ember, Gray said. Return what you took, pay for the destroyed materials, and apologize. The champion swung a forge hammer at his head. Eclipse Step moved Kai through the weapon's shadow. He appeared behind the champion and tapped the man between the shoulders with the flat of his iron sword. Pain Furnace released the force it had captured during the near miss. The champion crossed most of the bridge without using his feet. Nobody laughed when he landed. Voss ordered Crown Forge forward. Shields locked. Spears lowered over them. Casters prepared an area strike behind the line. Gray created 6 afterimages and sent all of them walking. Crown Forge fired at the Ron 4. Shadow Grasp pinned the shield captain. Kai A stepped past him, struck 2 healers with the flat of the blade, and moved again before the formation turned. His afterimages never dealt major damage. They made expensive players spend major attacks on nothing. When Crown Forge crowded together to protect its rear, Gray switched Livewire Venom into his active bloodline. 1 claw across Boss's armor applied the trait. Do not move, Kai said. Boss moved. The poison increased. He shouted for healers and moved again. It increased again. There were mechanics a person learned by reading, mechanics learned through experience, and mechanics Voss apparently intended to investigate 1 health bar at a time. Kai disabled the front line without chasing the players who retreated. He pinned weapons to their owner's shadows, broke casting rhythms with false steps, and used ordinary strength when subtlety became inefficient. Crown Forge had more than enough people to defeat 1 normal player. Rook had spent his first life as a 4 copper goblin learning that numbers only helped when everybody could reach the target. Soon Voss and Selka were the only leaders standing. The apology, Gray reminded them. Voss offered to withdraw. Gray pointed at the broken lantern and the Bright Harbor members waiting for respawn. Withdrawal does not repair anything. Selka gathered the scattered Dawn Ember materials herself. Crown Forge paid the reconstruction fee, returned every documented drop, and lined the bridge to defend the same procession it had blocked. I say, Kra, found Selka's broadcast before Selka could end it. Thousands watched her admit that Crown Forge had obstructed the rite and taken equipment from Bright Harbor. Selka called it a misunderstanding. Gray made her say it again using a word that meant what happened. Bright Harbor carried the restored flame across the bridge. Mina lit the advancement brazier and her guild banner changed from gray to gold. N joined remotely to compare its loss logs against Crown Forge's restitution, turning a public defeat into an audited settlement before Wayward Dawn's first day ended. Among the returned items, Kai found a caster focus far better than Mina's current equipment. He handed it to her. Kai sent this. Mina accepted the focus and looked from it to his name, Gray Rook. That is generally how names work. Kai Rook. He had prepared explanations. Under her stare, each one developed structural problems. He asked me to protect you, Gray said. Using the name seemed appropriate. Mina's suspicion softened without disappearing. You pause before bad jokes the way he does. That sounds like his problem. She laughed. Kai started away before familiarity broke more than the disguise. Mina followed him to the end of the bridge. When you speak to Kai, tell him he does not owe me. Gray stopped. He measures everything, she continued. My shifts, the hospital bills, what I borrowed, like I was maintaining an account and someday he has to make the numbers equal. I was not keeping score. Kai understood numbers. Goblin ears became copper. Essence became traits. Gear became crowns. Crowns could erase debt and buy safety. Visible costs could be managed. There was no system window for what Mina had just said. I'll tell him, Gray replied. Make sure he listens. That may cost extra. Her laugh followed him off the bridge. Back at Rook's Crown, Key received Bright Harbor's advancement notice and Wayward Dawn's first 100 applications. He also received a cross-shard challenge from Iron Halo. The rival guild had cleared Ashfang Cavern, a newly opened dungeon filled with saber-toothed beasts and furnace-fed tiger spirits. Its officers posted their 47-minute run and invited Kai's entire shard to produce anyone capable of matching it. One officer added that the locals seemed better at buying monster equipment than earning their own. Seyra replayed the challenge. That is arrogant. Jules opened the incomplete local map. It is also currently accurate. Gray selected the anonymous ranking flag. Koperai. Kai had built a friend for Mina, founded a guild by accident, and given Crownforge a lesson in vocabulary. Now his friend needed better clothes. Ashfang Cavern rewarded speed by hiding half of itself. The public route told parties to wait while each furnace-fed tiger spirit exhausted its flames. Kai killed the first spirit before its fire dimmed. A wall opened behind the altar. That was the real dungeon. Every guardian defeated before its furnace reset revealed another hidden passage. Breaking a furnace too early flooded the corridor with fire. Waiting too long sealed the door. Kaie missed the second passage by less than a second, repeated the route, and used Farsight to read the color change inside the hottest vent. Once the timing cost him something, it became understandable. The hidden boss was a glassfire Chimere with 3 heads, 1 breathed flame, 1 scattered crystal, and 1 restored whichever furnace Kai damaged. After images drew the first 2 attacks. Shadow Grasp held the healing head long enough for Gray to sever its fuel line. Livewire Venom punished the creature every time it snapped between targets. It dropped a Night Glass Mantle, Kilnstep Greaves, and a 2-handed Twin Break Blade whose second cut arrived a heartbeat after the first. Gray equipped all 3. Outside, Iron Halo completed the public route in 47 minutes and celebrated while the board updated. 1. Last piece standing, 38,004. Iron Halo demanded verification. The dungeon confirmed the route, time, and absence of outside assistance. Gray entered again. The second run took 31 minutes. By the fourth, he ignored every hidden chest he had already opened, reached the final Tiger King before its entrance animation finished, and ended the public route in 9 minutes and 32 seconds. Ra met him outside with several thousand viewers. Did you accept Iron Halo's challenge? Gray considered the rival officers waiting for credit. I needed equipment. That answer upset them more than his speech. The unwanted drops went to auction. Ordinary pieces sold instantly because a double experience day had begun. Kai kept the rare set pieces until buyers understood the next region, then released them one at a time through the gilded curator shell. A tiger cloak sold for enough to cover months of therapy. Quinn Greaves sold for more because Seyra demonstrated that they left flaming footprints. Jules watched the bids. Their combat value does not justify this. They leave flaming footprints, Ra said. Jules removed combat value from the discussion. Local guilds gathered at Ashfang's entrance the next morning, intending to stop Anonymous from monopolizing the event. Kai sent his followers to farm Rook's Crown and slept. The guards congratulated themselves when Gray failed to appear. While they defended an empty doorway, Iron Halo invaded the shard. Organized groups seized leveling zones, blocked spawn exits, and defeated anyone who crossed their lines. Wayward Dawn moved before Kie answered. Organized the Eastern Defense, or and opened service routes for trapped beginners, and Sin combined scattered parties into one evacuation channel. They saved hundreds. Iron Halo wiped their rearguard anyway. Mina called from a respawn ring near the South Aqueduct. They are killing us whenever we step out. Do you know where Gray is? An impact cut the connection. Kai called after her respawn delay. Exact gate. Third, their whole front group is here. Stay inside until my friend arrives. Gray reached the aqueduct alone. The invaders saw a human with 1 sword and assumed he had come to negotiate. Their first attacker struck an afterimage. The second found his shadow pinned to the wall. The third landed 1 point of damage through the nightglass set and interpreted that as encouragement. Soon the entire front rank was attacking. Gray drew Twin Break. The first sweep opened their shields. The delayed cut arrived as they leaned back into formation and broke the same line from the opposite direction. Eclipse Step carried Kai behind them. Shadow Grasp caught the healers. The fight ended at Mina's protection ring. Kai stacked the invaders' dropped potions and unbound equipment at her feet. Replace what everyone lost. Divide the rest. Mina looked at the pile. Kie asked you to do this? Kaie asked me to help. That was not my question. Gray left before she improved it. At Ashfang, N had already understood the useful part of the victory. Wayward Dawn gathered every recovered invasion drop and built a mound outside the dungeon, shields at the base, weapons and packs above, consumables arranged where guild marks remained visible. Tamsin circled it. That is bait. It is documented property, Ari, said. It can be two things. Sayra broadcast the mound across linked shards. Iron Halo, your missing equipment has been placed in one convenient location. Please collect it. Jules muted her for 3 seconds. Gray approved this? Gray nodded. He approved it. That does not improve the sentence. Iron Halo returned from 3 directions. Ranged units took the cliffs. Tanks advanced through the center while 2 flanking groups aimed for the loot. Kai let them overlap. Webb's snare sealed the cliff line. Tamsin's casters struck the supply teams. Ari led Wayward Dawn through the western flank, withdrew on or ends count and pulled its formation into the center path. Gray filled that path with afterimages. Iron Halo attacked 6 false targets. Eclipse Step carried the real one between their healers. Twin Break opened the center. Livewire Venom entered the retreating captain, and every desperate step raised the damage. The eastern group reached the mound, and released the supports beneath it. The loot pile collapsed, burying the attackers under the equipment they had invaded to recover. Silence spread across the canyon. Wayward Dawn held the exits. Iron Halo's commanders waited at respawn while Sayra's cameras showed their guild marks on every layer of the heap. The shard issued its reward. Frost Shard Invasion repelled. Primary Defender, Last Beast Standing. Shard Defender's Warheart obtained. The item appeared in Gray's inventory and immediately pulled against the dormant blood inside Kai. 4 beast embers ignited. Na Rose's black dragon blood woke. Ancestral Hunger opened 2 permanent branches. The Sky Scourge path offered longer flight and stronger breath. The Abyssal Dragon Fiend sacrificed range for a humanoid body, Legion authority, and a bounded dominion that strengthened followers only near legitimately claimed land. Choosing either consumed the Warheart, all 4 embers, and the stored dragon blood. The other lineage would close forever. Kai returned to Rook's crown before deciding. He dismissed Mortal Mask, stood beneath the first bloom seed, and looked over the territory Brack, Nyx, Pearl, and the others had helped him claim. He had never won by flying far from everyone who trusted him. He chose Abyssal Dragon Fiend. The Warheart broke. Black scales replaced Rakshasa fur. Wings tore open behind him, heavy enough to promise flight and costly enough that the system warned against trying it without full energy. His hands remained capable of holding a weapon. Curved horns framed his head, and blue-black fire gathered behind his teeth. The 4 embers entered his blood rather than harming the living keys. Their lineages became 4 beast blood, permanently recorded for whatever evolution came after this one. Na Rose's blood formed the catalyst. The first bloom seed anchored his new domain to Rook's crown, granting power here but refusing to follow him elsewhere. He had gained a battlefield form, not unlimited permission to win. Across linked chat, Iron Halo's leader claimed the invasion had been a misunderstanding and promised to return once his shard had prepared. Kai spread his new wings. He sent one reply through Last Beast Standing's public account. F5 days to compensate this shard. After that, I will collect the balance where you live.sid. The equipment mound had been the deposit. The bill would be delivered by a dragon. The bill, 3 lines, 5 days, replace what was stolen, repay the wasted consumables, admit the invasion had been planned. Iron Halo's commander laughed. 1 player doesn't negotiate with an entire shard. You had more players before you said that. An hour later, the refusal came. No apology, no bowing, death waiting at Frostvane's gate if he crossed. Thoughtful, now he knew where they'd wait. New species line, Abyssal Dragon Fiend, Blood Heir of the Black Worm, Lord of Rook's Crown. 3 gifts, 3 limits, fast draining wings, slow recharge breath, and Dread Dominion, dead past his border. Frostvane wasn't his. 1 reward remained, the root-bound transit seal, 1 jump. 5 followers, not 10, guides of Brack, Nyx, Pearl, and 2 Ashbone Hexers. He told Rowan they refused. Rowan, refusal does not give you permission to become them. Kai saved it, then broke the seal. Iron Halo massed hundreds at Frostvane's gate, guessing wrong. The seal dropped him 6 kilometers off, a root raising a pulsing core into the fog. Last Piece Standing has awakened Hollow Bloom. 8 heart roots have appeared. Destroy them before the mist consumes the shard's hunting regions. Mist rolled through. His monsters lifted their heads. It weakened humans, fed world-born blood. Violet fire ran between his claws. They really should have apologized. Iron Halo arrived 9 minutes later, saw him beside the heart root and posted it, a species line so long half the viewers took him for a raid boss. Iron Halo had indeed placed hundreds of players around Frostvane's arrival gate. Shields covered the front. Mages held suppression circles behind them. Binding specialists watched the air in case the newly evolved Dragon Fiend tried to fly over the formation. It was a disciplined defense against the wrong door. The root-bound seal deposited Kai 6 kilometers away in an abandoned apple orchard. A black-green root pushed out of the soil beneath him, split the dead trees, and raised a pulsing core into the fog. Every player on the Frostvane shard received the same announcement. Last Piece Standing has awakened Hollow Bloom. 8 heart roots have appeared. Destroy them before the mist consumes the shard's hunting regions. The 5 monsters beside Kai lifted their heads as the first veil of mist rolled through the orchard. World-born blood recognized the event. Muscles tightened. Senses sharpened. The mist that weakened human players strengthened wild lineages instead. Kai flexed one claw. Violet fire ran between his fingers. They really should have apologized. Iron Halo reached the orchard 9 minutes later. Their scouts saw Kai beside the Heartroot and immediately sent the image to the public channel. The abyssal dragon fiend's wings framed a species line so long that half the viewers assumed they were looking at a regional raid boss. Someone enlarged the image. Someone else found the short account name beneath the titles. The shard-wide conversation became less confident. Iron Halo attacked anyway. The first shield wall entered through the orchard road. Kai let them approach until the mist had weakened their movement, then sealed the retreat with web snare. Brax struck the left edge. Nyx and Pearl hit the right while the Ashbone Hexers broke the rear. When the formation compressed toward the center, Kai inhaled. Abyssal fire was not ordinary flame. It rolled out in a blue-black cone that damaged health, drained active barriers, and left a brief terror effect on creatures with weaker will. It also consumed nearly a third of Kie's energy bar. The attack erased the front rank and sent the survivors running into spiderwebs. Useful, dramatic, and financially irresponsible. He would not be breathing again for a while. The second assault came from above. Frostvane's aerial classes expected a heavy monster to remain on the ground, so Kai opened his wings and met them over the orchard. For 6 glorious seconds, the players discovered that a humanoid dragon with Blood Oni strength did not need a weapon to ruin a flying formation. On the 7th second, Kai's energy warning flashed. He folded his wings and dropped through the trees before gravity could turn the demonstration into a public lesson. The Ashbone captain covered his landing with a curse field. Kai struck the weakened attackers one by one, and Scrounger's luck still alive all the way from his runt body produced 2 intact flight charms from the wreckage. He had evolved 5 times and become a dragon demon, but somewhere inside him remained the Goblin who could find merchandise during attempted murder, and might have been his most dependable bloodline. Iron Halo changed tactics after its 4th failed assault. Small teams spread toward the other 7 Heartroots, hoping to end Hollow Bloom without touching the orchard. Kai had expected that. He did not need all 8 roots. He needed one. Brack, Pearl, and the 2 Hexers remained around the orchard while Kai took Neeks along the roads leading to the nearest roots. The followers could not complete event objectives without him, but they could interrupt anyone attempting the long clearing channel. Every interruption reset the process. Every failed team returned weaker because the mist had thickened while they traveled. By the end of Frostvane's first night, the ordinary hunting routes were empty. By morning, hollow mist pressed against the capital's safe zone barrier. Shops still operated. Players could still log in. They simply could not leave the city long enough to gain meaningful experience. Iron Halo had stolen 1 day of bonus progress from Kai's shard. Kai had placed an entire shard on hold. First private negotiation offered him crowns, rare weapons, and 30 days of peace. They wanted the transfer hidden so their sponsors would never learn how quickly the invasion had turned into an invoice. Kai refused. You attacked in public, you repaired in public. Their next response involved 6 guilds, siege magic, and the sort of confidence people developed when a previous terrible plan had not yet become expensive enough. The combined army entered the orchard from 3 sides. Binding chains caught Kai's wings. Fire spells burned through the web barriers. Assassins reached the Heartroot and began the clearing channel while ranged classes buried his followers in attacks. For several seconds, the plan worked. Then Kai stopped trying to fly, caught the binding chains in both hands, and activated Pain Furnace, the inheritance carried from his Blood Oni form. A limited portion of the damage entering his body became heat beneath his scales. The trait had a cap. It would not make him immortal. It did, however, make him extremely unpleasant for the next 12 seconds. Kai pulled. The players holding the chains flew out of position. Brack hit the opening. Nyx tore through the unguarded healers, and web snare closed over the assassins channeling beside the root while Pearl removed their recovery supplies. Kai spent the stored heat on 1 wing-assisted charge through the center. 6 guild banners vanished from the orchard. Frostvane's Shard Council contacted him before anyone could organize a 7th. Its representative asked what he actually wanted. Details and tests. Kai sent 3 terms. Iron Halo would broadcast an apology. The Shard Treasury would open a verified restitution ledger for losses from the cross-shard invasion. Finally, Frostvane would transfer 4 tradable Guardian Embers, resources left by its unclaimed Key Beast trials, to Rook's crown. It did not demand bound pets, personal account records, or ownership of Frostvane territory. He wanted the victims restored, the offense acknowledged, and a price memorable enough to discourage a sequel. The council offered 2 embers. Guy looked toward the capital, now barely visible behind green-black fog. Then you still have time to think. Rowan messaged him during the pause. They are preparing to concede. When they meet the terms, stop. Kai leaned against the Heartroot and watched loot being sorted into follower inventories. He could continue. The event favored his species. His squad had learned the orchard's defenses. Every failed assault delivered more potions and equipment. Staying had become profitable. That was precisely why Rowan's warning mattered. Punishment was easy to defend while it was paying him. Most Frostvane players had never joined Iron Halo's invasion. They were losing progress because their leaders had refused to admit a public defeat. Kai needed enough pressure to drag those leaders out from behind private offers. Beyond that point, the blockade would become the same thing he had crossed shards to punish. The broadcast appeared 22 minutes later. Iron Halo's commander admitted that his guild had deliberately targeted another shard's leveling routes during the bonus event. Frostvane's council opened the restitution ledger. The first claims were funded while both shards watched, and 4 Guardian Embers entered the official transfer system. Kai checked every receipt. Rowan confirmed the ledger was real. Only then did Kai place one claw against the Heartroot and release his claim. The Dead Orchard loosened. Brutes withdrew into the ground, carrying the pulsing core with them. Across Frostvane, the remaining Heartroots collapsed, and the mist began peeling away from the capital. No final ambush followed. Guy took no extra ember and did not kill the apologizing commander for dramatic punctuation. Once the agreement was complete, the root-bound seal carried him home. Raz Streen caught his return to Rook's Crown. Wayward Dawn members were distributing restored equipment below the mountain. Nah stood among them, still believing Grey Rook and Last Piece Standing were separate people. Kai remained in his dragon fiend body at the edge of the crowd and did not approach her. That small distance hurt more than anything Frostvane had managed. Dad. Mina received her lost supplies. Ria's members recovered what Crown Forge's allies had stripped. Smaller guilds watched compensation enter their accounts. Iron Halo's public apology could not be quietly rewritten, and 4 Guardian Embers burned inside Kai's inventory. Frostvane had laughed at a monster worth 4 copper. It had just paid an entire shard's restitution to make him leave. When Kai logged out, the room felt different before he even removed the helmet. His legs were trembling, but they were not silent. He gripped the rail beside the bed, pushed himself upright, and waited until the shaking settled. Until now, he had managed supported steps and one brief moment of balance before his knees folded. This time, he let go. Kai stood alone. Far wall was 3 meters away. He took one step, then a second. His right foot dragged. His hip compensated badly. On the 4th step, his knee started to buckle, and he caught himself against the wall with both hands. 4 unaided steps. They left him sweating as if he had crossed Frostvane on foot. Kai lowered himself carefully to the floor and laughed once, quietly, because the first monster players had hunted for 4 copper had now walked farther in the real world than he had since the accident. He did not call Mina yet. He wanted medical confirmation before giving her hope she might have to lose again. But he saved the clinic's number beside the key to Rook's crown. For the first time, those two things felt like parts of the same future. 4 Guardian Embers still sat unspent in his inventory, and Rook's crown needed every one of them. Kai spent the first Guardian Ember on the Dominion brand. The ember dissolved into the seal carved beneath Rook's crown, and every bound follower lifted its head at once. The brand expanded to an 11th traveling slot. Command range increased inside claimed territory, and pack mandate gained enough depth that captains could interpret an objective instead of waiting for individual instructions. A goblin mason inspected a damaged palisade, selected matching timber, and called the Ashbone captain when it found a curse lodged in the foundation. Kai watched the exchange. My employees have developed initiative before I have developed wages. The worker continued repairing the wall. It had also developed the ability to ignore management. The other 3 Guardian Embers went into Rook's Crown's defenses, follower recovery, and supply vaults. Fast combat power tempted him, but Frostvane had exposed a larger weakness. A territory that collapsed whenever its owner left was not a kingdom. It was a tent with delusions. Once the upgrades were committed, Rowan opened the government escrow auction. This time, Kai used no female shell, altered auction body, or suspicious personal account, receiving several lifetimes of income before dinner. Every item passed through an official marketplace channel. Taxes were withheld. Provenance was recorded. Rowan's office separated game identities from home addresses and flagged any attempt to trace successful bidders or sellers outside approved systems. The process removed a painful percentage from every sale. Kaye disliked the fees. He disliked the possibility of Mina being followed far more. The first lots contained duplicate nightglass cloaks, venom-resistant sets, hollow bloom accessories, foreign weapons taken from flagged invaders, and rare evolution catalysts that Kai could not use without abandoning his current lineage. Buyers began carefully. Then, Sayra demonstrated 1 cloak's movement bonus on stream. Jules announced that the stock was verified and limited. Careful bidding died with surprising dignity. Corporate guilds bought full packages. Smaller groups pooled crowns for individual pieces. One company paid more for an event necklace than Kai and Mine had once spent on 6 months of food. The necklace added 4% resistance to restraint effects. Apparently, freedom was expensive in every world. The final lot was a twin-bladed weapon from the Ashfang War. Its combination effect grew stronger when a user alternated attack angles instead of repeating the same swing. 3 guilds began bidding. 1 withdrew when the price reached the cost of a modest apartment. The other 2 saw that number and took it personally. When the timer ended, Row-in called. After fees and tax withholding, escrow covers Mina's remaining medical debt, your continued rehabilitation, and the property range you sent me. Kai stared at the summary. Debt. Treatment. Home. For years, those had not been ordinary words. They had been the walls around every choice Mina made. Now each line read funded. Is all of it legal? He asked. Painfully. Then I suppose the fees have earned the right to live. The clinic appointment came first. Kai brought his chair because the walk from the entrance to neurology remained beyond him. He hated using it after crossing his room alone, but the doctor reminded him that returning motor control and rebuilding years of lost muscle were different jobs. The tests lasted most of the morning. Signals reached both legs. The right side remained slower. Balance responses that had once been absent now appeared consistently, even with the helmet disconnected. Imaging showed new functional pathways around damaged regions rather than temporary electrical stimulation. The doctor made him walk between parallel rails. Kai crossed once with both hands near the supports, then returned without touching them. By the end, his legs shook so badly that he needed the chair. The doctor smiled anyway. The recovery is real, your endurance is not. That sounds unnecessarily personal. You tried to walk the corridor after I told you to stop. I wanted an independent result. Your independent result was nearly meeting the floor. Kai left with a cane, a stricter rehab schedule, and 2 copies of the discharge report, one for Mina, one for house key. Mina called before he reached the doors. Better than expected, he said. She wanted the full report. Hiding good news from her felt worse than any lie he'd told an enemy. The surprise needed one more day. Rowan's team had cleared the development. Wide halls, ground floor bedroom, adjustable counters. Kai went straight from the clinic, escrow confirmation on his phone. June Halden stared. They'd studied structural design together, before the collapse. Kai? So did I. You look good. I look vertical. June offered a tour. A senior agent asked if she planned another free afternoon for people who couldn't qualify. June ignored him. Kai asked for the best practical house, not the biggest. June showed a quiet end unit, broad entrance, courtyard, a ground floor room built either way, an office for Mina, good light, removable handrails. Kai checked the numbers. June knew them or called the engineer. That honesty sold it. Mina would like this. I can reserve it until tomorrow. Buy it today. The senior agents reappeared fast, one reaching for the contract. Kai tapped his cane once. June showed me the property. June receives the sale. Rowan's escrow cleared. Kai signed through June, put the home in both his and Mina's names, cleared her medical debt, and set aside enough that sleep could stop being a luxury for her. Kai tapped his cane against the floor once. June showed me the property. June receives the sale. Rowan's escrow verification arrived. The account passed funding, tax, and identity checks. The atmosphere changed without anyone announcing it. Chairs appeared. Water arrived. The financing brochure disappeared as if it had entered witness protection. Kai signed through June. He placed the home in both his and Mina's names. He cleared the medical debt through the same escrow and reserved enough for treatment, maintenance, and a period in which Mina could stop treating sleep like a luxury service. When June handed him the preliminary keys, she asked what had changed. The truthful explanation involved a goblin, a poison monopoly, several governments, and a dragon-shaped trade dispute. Kai chose the shorter version. I found work I am strangely suited for. He left with one key in his pocket and the second sealed beside Mina's clinic report. Then he went home, rested until his legs stopped shaking, and logged back into the body that could fly. Beyond Cinderback Summit, a road of white ash led into a region no public map had completed. Grave markers crowded both sides. Some carried names. Others carried only open mouths carved into stone. At the road's end stood a black arch buried in ash. Thousands of names covered its pillars. Some had been cut neatly. Others appeared scratched in by fingernails. The system identified it as the choir gate entrance to the memory osure. The door screamed when Kai touched it. A translucent young woman stepped through before he decided whether screaming architecture was a warning or simply a very committed welcome bell. Pale lines of writing moved beneath her skin. Her clothes belonged to no current faction, and her feet never quite touched the ground. "You can see me," she said. Kai wore Grey Rook's mortal mask. He checked behind himself. He came out of the door and stood directly in front of me. Most people only hear the choir. Lu Mi's script flickered as something older than the Archcross referenced him. "Last piece standing," she said, like she was reading a headstone. "The market archive still lists an appraisal under that name. 2 ears, 4 copper total. That entry is outdated. Everything here is outdated. That is the arrangement." She introduced herself as Lu Mi, archivist and gatekeeper of the ruined records beyond the arch. Corrupted spirits had filled the first hall. 500 needed to be cleansed by one living challenger before the inner gate would open. Kai checked the reward. Ancient heart, dormant. The item matched one of the oldest requirements ancestral hunger had shown him, a component tied to the final lineage hidden beyond abyssal dragon fiend. They had searched markets, raid lists, and private archives without finding one. Now it waited behind a door that screamed at customers. "How many people can enter?" he asked. 1. Followers? Rejected. Key beasts? Rejected. His Dominion brand dimmed when Lu Mi opened the gate. Dread Dominion vanished with it. The Osure accepted Kai alone. He looked into the black hall, then at the dormant ancient heart displayed on the mission panel. Fine. The door closed behind him. 2 level 22 spirits formed before Kay had taken 6 steps. One carried a spear made of compacted writing. The other wore the posture of a shield bearer but seemed to have forgotten to manifest the actual shield. Kai attacked the spear spirit. The weapon struck cleanly. Before he could follow, the second spirit released a resonance note. The sound ignored his scales. It passed through armor, muscle, and abyssal blood to strike the lineage core beneath them all. Kai staggered. The spear entered his side, and his health dropped far faster than two ordinary enemies at that level should have managed. He retreated through the gate with less than half his health. Lumi watched him recover. Most challengers leave after that. Kai looked at the closed door. Most challengers probably arrive with a group and then discover your policy. He drank a potion, reviewed the resonance pattern, and stood. The ancient heart waited on the other side. 500 spirits waited in front of it. Kai had survived far worse situations. Admittedly, most of them had not required this much counting. Kai returned to the first chamber with a different plan. The shield spirit's resonance note required a breath-long gathering pattern. Writing brightened around its throat before the sound formed. On the first attempt, Kai had treated that glow as decoration. Everdawn had cured him of that habit several regions ago. He pulled both spirits toward the entrance. When the throat script brightened, he used a thread of shadow inherited from Eclipse Rakshasa to bind the spirit's jaw. The note emerged warped and weak. Kai ignored the sting, broke the spear carrier, then ended the second before it gathered another breath. Two spirits dissolved into pale sparks. The counter read 2500. Kai looked down the hall. Then he made the most dangerous calculation available to any player with a repetitive quest. He divided 500 by 2. The first 50 pairs taught him the rhythm. The next 100 discovered all the ways the Osure intended to ruin that rhythm. Some shield spirits gathered resonance through their hands instead of their throats. Some spear carriers threw the weapon and manifested another. The floor rearranged between pulls, turning yesterday's safe corner into today's room full of screaming records. Kai adapted. A Rakshasa afterimage distorted his silhouette long enough to separate clustered enemies. Shadow Grasp interrupted resonance. Dragon Fiend's strength finished the exposed target. When his energy fell too low, he withdrew, instead of proving that pride could perform arithmetic. The one time he pulled a third spirit to save time, 3 overlapping notes emptied most of his health and sent him sliding through the entrance. Lu Mi said nothing while he recovered. Her expression achieved more than criticism would have. "I understand," Kai said. "I did not speak." That was the aggressive part. Across 10 hours and 2 mandatory neural safety breaks, he cleared the first haul 2 spirits at a time. The final pair barely slowed him. Shadow closed the singer's throat. One claw broke the spear. A wing strike knocked the second spirit off balance, and the 500th corrupted record dissolved. The choir gate went silent. Lumi led him to a black pedestal where a red gold object floated inside a ring of names. It was not shaped like a human heart. It resembled a closed seed wrapped in veins of light, beating once every several seconds as though remembering how. The system confirmed the reward. An ancient heart, a primeval lineage vessel capable of stabilizing incompatible ancestral blood, required for unknown sovereign evolution. Kai touched it. The heart entered his chest without breaking skin. Heat moved through every permanent lineage he had carried: Starving Goblin, Ironjaw Hobgoblin, Blood Oni, Eclipse Rakshasa, and Abyssal Dragon Fiend. For one alarming second, all 5 tried to answer at once. Ancestral hunger intervened. The lineages settled around the ancient heart instead of fighting for control. His active trait capacity increased by 1, and the system opened a locked evolution panel. Final known path. Primordial monster. Sovereign requirements recognized. Ancient heart. Acquired 4 beast blood. Acquired archive shard. Missing sovereign crown. Missing. The panel closed before revealing anything else. Kai stared at the blank air where it had been. "That is all?" Lumi tilted her head. "You received the ancient heart. I received half a shopping list. Would you prefer the door scream again?" He decided the reward had been adequate. Lumi waited until the heart became non-refundable before mentioning the deeper corruption. 3,000 grave spirits carried marks that were poisoning the Os-U-R-E's inner records. Until those marks were cleansed, no archive shard could form. Kai opened the new mission counter. "You knew about this before I entered." "Yes." "And you waited." "Yes." Lumi had the calm honesty of someone who had spent centuries beyond the reach of customer complaints. The second cleansing took 3 days, but the Os-U-R-E at least had the courtesy to vary its abuse. The first cohort wore bell-shaped armor and shared defense through a choir bond. Attacking one strengthened the others. Kai learned to snare the smallest bell, pull it beyond the shared radius, and let the defense collapse before his dragon fiend claws reached the main group. The second cohort fired resonance arrows from balconies. Flight might have solved the problem if the ceiling had not been covered in suppressing script. Kai used Rakshasa after images to draw shots, climbed the walls, and made the archers regret designing a position with only one exit. The third cohort copied his last attack. The first spirit met a claw strike with a claw of script. The second reproduced Shadow Grasp. When Kaye used Abyssal Breath, the entire group inhaled. He cancelled the flame and left before discovering whether copied Dragon Fiend Breath came with copied energy costs. Against those spirits, Kai alternated lineages. A goblin's low feint led into an iron jaw shoulder charge. Blood Oni strength gave way to rock shasa control. Dragon fiend wings changed his angle without repeating the previous attack. The creatures could copy a move. They could not copy the path that had taught him all of them. At 1000 cleansed marks, Ancestral Hunger found a compatible trait inside the choir. Choir break field weakened the spiritual agreement holding nearby enemies together. In practical language, defenses fell when enemies entered Kai's radius. The effect started small and consumed continuous energy, but it changed every remaining fight. At 3000, the field stabilized. Kai could compress it into one ranged pulse, useful against distant enemies and costly enough to punish enthusiasm. The last spirit fell to that pulse. Kai checked the reward. No weapon, no armor, not even a decorative item whose value could be exaggerated at auction. This region has a weak understanding of commerce, he told Lumi. It preserves the dead. The dead have terrible spending habits. A delayed system chime found him even through the OSU Air Ease walls. Restitution audit closed. Enforcing account last be standing. 4 guardian embers, 1 shard-wide apology, and 3 separate guild boards updating the same field within the same minute. Kai silenced the notification and kept walking. Violet light moved behind a collapsed gallery. Kai followed it and found hundreds of grave soldiers kneeling around a suspended sphere of script. Pale streams flowed from their bodies into a circular ritual beneath the sphere. At the center stood Grave Marshal Dane, a level 27 Death Knight wearing black armor made from compressed name tablets. Dane's sword rested in the floor. Every kneeling spirit fed energy into it. Kai studied the ritual and backed away before the marshal turned. Lumi explained the formation near the gate. The memory loom rebuilt Dane whenever the OSU Air E attempted to erase him. Killing the soldiers would slow the process, but the ritual would replace them. A challenger had to steal 5,000 units of gathered mana before the loom completed its next cycle. Kai could siphon that power through the ether channels he had cultivated earlier, but only from inside the formation. Dane patrolled the outer galleries at regular intervals. What happens if the loom notices me? Kai asked. Dane returns. And if Dane notices me? Lumi glanced toward the ritual. That saved several unnecessary words. Nye entered during the next patrol under mortal mask. The disguise looked human. It did not smell human to the dead. He sat among the grave soldiers, opened his ether channels, and drew. Cold mana poured through him. The first 100 units came quietly. At 500, the violet sphere flickered. At 900, Dane's planted sword began to glow. Kai stopped. The Death Knight turned in the outer corridor. Every grave soldier remained kneeling. Kai sat among them in the shape of a living man who had no reason to be there. Dane walked toward the center, one plated step at a time. The sword glowed brighter as he approached. Kai let the stolen powers circulate without taking more. The light dimmed. Dane stopped 10 paces away. For several seconds, the marshal's empty visor pointed directly at Kai. Then he turned and resumed the patrol. Kai waited until the sound faded. He took 80 units. Stopped. Took 60. Stopped. Drew 100 when Dane faced the far gallery. Every cycle taught him how slowly the loom recognized the theft. It also made the final stage more dangerous as the ritual grew starved. The last 500 units took longer than the first 4,000. When the counter reached 5,000, Kaye closed the channel, stood with the other grave soldiers still kneeling, and walked calmly toward the broken gallery. He waited until the wall concealed him, then he ran. The stolen mana expanded his energy pool and forced the memory loom down to a sick violet pulse. Most of the linked soldiers collapsed. Lumi studied the weakened ritual. Now Dane can be killed. Kai inspected the boss panel. The marshal had been reduced to 1/10 of his ceremonial power. That sounded excellent, until he remembered the ceremonial power belonged to a level 27 Death Knight with an execution sword. No. Nay. Blinked. No? 1/10 of a mountain remains a large rock. Your reward is an archive shard I cannot price, and the lower gate recommends level 50. If Dane survives, the loom will recover. Then find a level 50 customer. Tail writing raced beneath Lumi's skin. If he falls, my gatekeeper bond ends. I can leave with you. The mission panel updated. Unique support companion, Lumi. Kai reopened the details. Lumi could not deal direct damage. He could briefly face him out of enemy targeting, improve his core energy regeneration, and possess empty vessels with no living or claimed soul inside. An attack would immediately end phase. Possession would not work on enemies, players, or bound followers. The restrictions were severe. The abilities were unique. Kai accepted. Lumi stared at the glowing confirmation. That was quick. The reward improved. Dane waited beside the dying memory loom. Kaye opened with choir break field. Pressure weakened the bonds across the marshal's name tablet armor. He fired the field's ranged pulse at Dane's sword arm. The Death Knight turned his blade flat. Kai's own pulse returned along the same line. He moved before the direct hit, but the edge of the reflected force carved a wound across his shoulder. Blade flat means frontal reversal, Lumi called. Useful. You say that as though I told you before. Kai circled and tested a low attack. Dane lowered his sword beside one leg. Ground counter, Lumi warned. Kai canceled the strike. The marshal drove his weapon down, splitting the ritual floor with a black wave. For the next minute, Kai learned the language of Dane's stances. Blade flat returned, ranged force. Sword low, redirected physical impact through the ground. Both hands on the grip absorbed one attack and released part of it through the next swing. Every counter required a recovery. Kai stopped trying to overpower the stance and began provoking it. A weak pulse drew the reflection. He moved before it returned and clawed Dane's exposed side. A short feint triggered the ground wave. Kai jumped the fracture and applied Mire Venom between two armor tablets. Dane resisted most of it, but the poison forced him to move while Choirbreak Field weakened his defense. Pain Furnace converted a capped portion of the glancing hits into strength. Kai spent that strength only during Dane's recovery windows. He did not let the Blood Oni inheritance tempt him into trading full attacks with a sword longer than he was tall. At half health, Dane abandoned the counters, planted the blade into the memory loom and pulled every remaining name into himself. The chamber walls lit. A resonance ring expanded across the floor. "Run," Lumi said. Kai ran. The first wave caught his wings and nearly drove him down. A second gathered behind it, brighter and wider, carrying every loose memory in the Osue. Dane raised the sword for a final release. Lumi placed both hands between Kai's wings. Cold light entered the ancient heart. His empty energy bar filled in one sharp surge while the writing beneath Lumi's skin faded almost to nothing. "I can restore you like that once," she said. The final wave reached them. Lumi phased him. "La!" Kai became transparent for less than 2 seconds. Resonance passed through his body without finding a target. He could not attack while phased and knew better than to test the contract in the middle of an execution. The instant his claws became solid, K launched into the air. One wing beat carried him over the fading wave. The second emptied nearly all the energy Lumi had restored. He fell toward Dane, folded his wings, and changed from flying monster to very deliberate falling object. Dane raised the sword. Kai released Choirbreak Field straight down. The pulse opened a seam across the armor seal connected to the loom. Kai drove both claws into that seam and spent the last stored heat from Pain Furnace. The seal broke. Dane's sword stopped above his neck. Every name on the armor went dark. Marshall fell backward, and the memory loom collapsed into violet fragments. One fragment remained whole. The system named it the Archive Shard. Kai received it, the key to the sealed null archive, and Dane's counterflow stance, an inherited technique that allowed him to catch a limited portion of incoming force through proper footing and redirect it once. Strong attacks required stronger anchoring. Poor timing would send the force through his own body instead. It was a skill that rewarded judgment and punished arrogance. The game had developed an uncomfortable understanding of him. A second notice arrived before the evolution panel did. First clear, Grave Marshal Dane, unique, solo, last piece standing. No party assist recorded. No group flag. Somewhere outside the Osue, that line was about to reach boards most players couldn't clear a tier to read. Kai dismissed it and waited. The evolution panel opened again. Ancient Heart, acquired Four-Beast Blood, acquired Archive Shard, acquired Sovereign Crown, missing. Beyond the dead loom, a lower door unlocked. Cold darkness waited behind it, and the key in Kai's inventory identified the destination as the Null Archive, recommended level 50. Kai closed the door. The Ancient Heart had made him stronger, not stupid. Master Prize, Lumi's companion contract appeared last. Kai accepted, and the gatekeeper writing beneath her skin loosened. For the first time in longer than she could remember, she crossed the choir gate without being pulled back. She floated into the White Ash Road and stared at the open sky. Her freedom lasted 11 seconds before Tamsin sent Kai an emergency message. Lost. Voss wants the guild charter next. Kai looked toward First Light Bastion. Lumi looked at him. Is that another ritual? Worse? He activated Mortal Mask. Guild administration. Elsewhere, Set Raw had already stopped narrating. First clear, Grave Marshal Dane unique, solo, last beast standing. She read it a third time. Joel's set the account's oldest bestiary line beside it, without being asked. Weakest recorded spawn on the continent, 4 copper for both ears. Jack could not scroll fast enough to keep up. Neither of them knew the same account was 30 seconds from a guild stake duel wearing another man's face. Wayward Dawn had gathered outside the First Light Arena. Ria stood with Tamsin and Oren, one arm still carrying the red outline of recent defeat. Across the square, Crown Forge celebrated around Vostre. Selka Meyer leaned against the registration pillar with her whip coiled at one hip, enjoying the moment with the deep satisfaction of someone who had mistaken cruelty for a personality. Voss had challenged Ari while Grey Rook was absent. After winning, he announced that Wayward Dawn's records belonged to a founder who had abandoned his own guild. If Ari resigned, Crown Forge would withdraw its claim on the charter. If she stayed, Voss would force a formal guild stake battle. Ari had chosen to leave. No, Kai said. She turned at the sound of Grey Rook's voice. Mortal Mask held his human face steady, but something familiar passed through her expression again. You weren't here, Aria said. They're using me to reach everyone else. You run Wayward Dawn because I asked you to. And I lost. If winning every duel were the requirement for management, and would replace both of us with a spreadsheet. And considered this, the spreadsheet would need combat training. Almost smiled. Boss entered the arena with 50 Crown Forge members and called Gray's return convenient. He had filed a legal stake challenge, supplied the collateral, and placed every Crown Forge blockade around First Light into the contract. Kaye added one condition. If Wayward Dawn lost, Crown Forge took its charter. If Crown Forge lost, it surrendered the blockades and permanently barred Voss or Selka from using Mina, or lower-level guild members as leverage. Voss accepted. He had studied Gray's earlier fights. Crown Forge spread its front line to avoid one area strike, reinforced every shield, and divided the charge into 3 staggered waves. If Kai committed to one side, the other 2 would trap him. It was a good answer to the man Boss remembered. That man had not robbed a resurrection ritual and learned from its death knight. The first wave locked shields. The second braced spears through the gaps. The third waited half a step behind. Kaye planted his feet. Counterflow stance caught only a portion of force. Taking too much would break his footing and turn the rest into damage. He opened Choirbreak Field first, weakening the agreement between shields, then let the front wave strike. Power traveled through his arms, shoulders, ancient heart, and legs. Stone cracked beneath his boots. Pain Furnace took the damage Counterflow could not. Kai redirected the captured force diagonally. The first shield rank slammed into the second. Spears kicked backward. The delayed third wave ran into allies who had stopped without warning. Before the formation could recover, Rakshasa afterimages split left and right while Kai went through the center. He did not need Abyssal Dragon Fiend breath. Grey Rook was supposed to look human, and reducing the arena to blue-black fire would create difficult follow-up questions. Ironjaw strength broke the nearest shields. Shadow Grasp caught the healers. Scrounger's Lock found a weak buckle on Voss's breastplate because apparently even Destiny appreciated inexpensive hardware. Wayward Dawn crossed the starting line only after half of Crown Forge had fallen. Voss tried to rise. Kai placed one boot on his shield. i.e. the blockades. Voss surrendered them. Balls. The system transferred the guild stake, cancelled Crown Forge's quest control contracts, and recorded the restriction protecting Mine and Ari-Ah. Kaye ended the fight when the agreement resolved. The guild had lost the tool it used to bully weaker players. Another respawn timer would not improve the contract. Outside the arena, Ari-Ah asked why he had returned. Tamsin sent an emergency message. That is all? That is generally why people send them. She watched him with the same unsettled recognition. Have we met outside Everdawn? Kai let Mortal Mask do its work. Do you meet many people who argue about drainage plans during combat? Before Aria could answer, Tamsin pointed toward the Tower of Measures. Crown Forge supporters were already claiming the arena victory depended on an unknown trick, and that Gray's old Floor 5 record proved nothing. Kai had once stopped at Floor 5 to control attention. That excuse had expired. He entered under his own handle, last piece standing. The first floors ended in seconds. Floor 5, once his carefully chosen ceiling, fell before the audience finished gathering around the ranking board. At Floor 12, an examiner finally survived one complete combination. At Floor 16, a flying judge forced Kaya to use Choirbreak's ranged pulse. Floor 20 carried an armored guardian whose hammer struck hard enough to test counterflow. Kai caught the first blow, redirected only what his footing could hold, and let Pain Furnace absorb the rest. The returned force broke the guardian's stance. Dragon Fiend's strength ended the trial. The system offered Floor 21. Kai leaned against the wall, made sure the observers could see him breathing hard, and selected exit. Anonymous settled at Floor 20. Public proof only needed to exceed the challenge. He'd stopped hiding what he simply hadn't needed all of it yet. He entered the guild-scaled tower next and pushed alone through Tier 7. The rewards included Ascension Crystals, leadership tokens, and equipment meant for a full founding party. Corrects, Kai handed nearly all of it to Or-En for distribution, then confirmed Ari-Ah as Wayward Dawn's field commander in front of the guild. This time she accepted without apologizing for the fight she had lost. By nightfall, First Light's roads were open and Crown Forge's blockade banners were gone. Kai could have rested. Instead, he followed the last clue attached to Dane's archive shard. It led beneath an abandoned burial hill north of the Os-Ure, where a circular door waited under 3 layers of stone. The Abyssal Rela Acquire E recommended level 23 and a group of 5. Kai entered alone. Lumi floated beside him. You have followers. The Crown Trial rejects them. You also have a guild. They just finished one emergency. And you? Kai opened the door. I make poor scheduling decisions. The visible dungeon tested each lineage separately. Goblin shades hid among false treasure chests. Hobgoblin guards coordinated shield rotations. Oni revenants grew stronger when wounded. My Rakshasa mirrors filled corridors with false turns. Dragon Fiend sentries attacked from broken balconies. Kai understood the lesson. The Relay Choir E was not checking whether he possessed powerful blood. It was checking whether he had learned how each bloodline failed. He ignored the richest goblin decoy because Scrounger's luck marked the modest chest as real. He separated the hobgoblin guards from their captain. He stopped attacking the Oni revenants when their furnace marks filled and let Venom finish the work. He tracked Rock Shaw saw mirrors by the shadows they failed to copy. Against the dragon fiends, he stayed grounded until their flight energy emptied. The visible boss fell in 11 minutes. The dungeon did not open an exit. Instead, a throne rose from the floor. An enormous creature unfolded behind it. The crown eater of the first abyss had no single species. Horns, wings, claws, and masks shifted across its body as if it had consumed evolutionary branches without choosing among them. That was the warning hidden in the room. Power without a coherent lineage was not ascension. It was appetite-wearing trophies. The crown eater struck before Kai finished reading its rank. One claw emptied a quarter of his health. A second grew from its shoulder and copied the angle. Haya escaped with a burst of flight, but the boss produced wings of its own and followed. Its body changed whenever he attacked. Venom created scales that resisted poison. Shadow bindings caused extra limbs to split the snare. When Pain Furnace raised Kai's strength, the Crown Eater grew an Oni face and answered with more. Ancestral hunger offered no new trait. For once, consuming the enemy was not the solution. Kai turned off every optional inheritance except Scrounger's Luck and Mortal Mask's Shadow Sense. His damage fell. So did the number of adaptations the boss could copy. They fought with the permanent shape beneath the traits, Dragon Fiend claws, wings, judgment, and every mistake required to reach them. The battle lasted 34 minutes. Lumi phased him through one killing strike. An attack would end the veil, so Kai waited until solidity returned before moving behind the boss. Her regeneration bought him time but never enough to ignore damage. Counterflow redirected one copied wing charge, though the force tore scales from both forearms. At low health, the Crown Eater opened every stolen lineage at once. Goblin hands reached for his inventory. Hobgoblin voices issued commands. Oni horns burned. Raksha saw shadows filled the chamber, and 5 dragon throats gathered breath. Kai saw the modest crown on the throne behind it. Scrounger's Luck had marked the weak point from the beginning. Not the monster. The thing it was protecting. Kai flew straight through the false shadows. 5 breath attacks followed. Lumi poured her remaining regeneration into the ancient heart. Kai reached the throne, seized the crown, and turned. The Crown Eater stopped. Without the relic organizing its stolen blood, every lineage fought every other. The creature collapsed beneath its own transformations, its stolen blood pooling into something that had not existed until that moment. The system awarded the sovereign crown. The evolution panel opened. All 4 requirements burned. Kai entered the trial hidden inside that blood. He stood again as the starved goblin runt in Mudgrave Warren, small, hungry, wearing one sandal, and holding the chipped kitchen cleaver players had valued less than his ears. Around him waited every branch he had refused. The bigger goblin, the mindless ogre, the venom hydra, the full dragon, the things that promised easy strength if he abandoned everything that came before. The Crown Eater knelt among them. It had eaten thrones. It knelt anyway. Not to a hero. Not to a king. It knelt to a goblin holding a chipped kitchen cleaver. The Sovereign Crown did not ask him to defeat them. It asked him to choose what he would rule. Kai selected the line he had actually lived. The Goblin's Scrounger's Luck. The Hobgoblin's Pack Mandate. The Blood Oni's Pain Furnace. The Rock Shaw Saw's Mortal Mask. The Dragon Fiend's Wings and Abyssal Flame. Choir Break and Counterflow occupied the remaining active spaces. Dozens of other gathered traits entered the Ancient Heart as an archive. He could change the loadout only at acclaimed Dominion and never carry all of them at once. The system offered one final warning. Evolution was permanent. Kai confirmed. The runt body grew. Green skin darkened to obsidian marked by thin lines of gold. Iron jaw tusks receded into a controlled angular face. Oni horns swept back like a crown beneath the relic. Rakshasa shadow formed a mantle around broad shoulders, and dragon fiend wings folded into that mantle until summoned. The final body remained bipedal, balanced, and unmistakably descended from every form that had carried him there. Primordial monster sovereign. Not a god. Not every monster at once. The final known apex lineage on the current servers. The Reliquire E recognized the creature who had defeated its ruler and transferred the dungeon chamber as legitimately claimed territory. First Dominion awakened. Every unclaimed lesser world-born creature in the dungeon stopped attacking. The goblin shades lowered their knives. Hobgoblin guards struck shields to the floor. Oni revenants bowed. Even the surviving dragon fiend sentries folded their wings. Outside, players watching the dungeon status saw every hostile counter fall to 0 at once. Then the global announcement displayed Kai's species line. It occupied 3 rows. Thak, stared at it on stream. Jules read the first row, considered the remaining 2, and said, Event Boss. Ra enlarged the account field beneath it. Last piece standing. First Dominion could not control players, claimed followers, elite bosses, or creatures beyond Kaya's territory. It did not make him omnipotent. Inside what he had rightfully conquered, however, lesser monsters recognized their sovereign. Kai logged out before the public reaction became a second boss fight. He opened his eyes and moved his right foot. Every toe responded. He rotated the ankle, bent the knee, shifted his hip without the delay that had followed every earlier improvement. Kai stood. There was weakness. There was shaking. Years of atrophy remained exactly where medicine said they would be, but no part of his body was silent. He crossed the room, turned, and crossed it again. At the clinic, the tests confirmed complete voluntary motor control below the injury. New pathways carried stable signals with the helmet disconnected. Rehabilitation would still take months. Strength and endurance had to be rebuilt honestly. The nervous system recovery itself was real. Kai left the clinic on his own feet, carrying the folded cane instead of using it. He called Mina. "Can you come to an address tomorrow evening?" She demanded to know why. Kai looked at the medical report, the house key, and the deed waiting in one envelope. "I owe you an explanation." The Crown Eater's throne contained one more reward. Hirai found it after returning to the abyssal Relay I Quare E, where the lesser monsters remained peaceful beneath First Dominion. A black seed rested under the throne, wrapped in roots of gold. The system called it a Dominion Labyrinth seed. When planted inside legitimately claimed territory, it could reshape empty space into a player-owned dungeon. Kai could install recorded monster templates, set difficulty, choose entry rules, and build reward tables. The final phrase interested him. Reward tables. He planted the seed beneath the highest shelf of Rook's crown. A gold-black beam rose above the mountain. Roots spread through the stone, opening halls without damaging the territory above. An ownership interface unfolded across Kai's vision and offered more options than some governments. He named the dungeon the Runt-born Labyrinth. That decision took 3 seconds. Configuring it took the rest of the day. Kai began with mudgrave goblins in the first room, glassmire predators in the second, and coordinated mountain beasts in the third. A hollow bloom guardian occupied the final chamber. He lowered every template to a fair range for the intended players and removed several combinations that were technically survivable but morally suspicious. The first test group lasted 40 seconds. Goblin scavengers stole their spare potions. Glassmire spiders webbed the exit. The mountain beasts arrived while everyone was still arguing about who had brought antidotes. Kai reset the rooms. The second test group survived longer because he removed one spider and widened a passage. They reached the final guardian, discovered the arena punished standing still, and became a lesson for the third group. By the fifth run, the route was difficult, readable, and capable of rewarding people who learned instead of people who arrived with the largest wallet. Then Kai opened the treasury screen. It contained one extremely important restriction. The labyrinth could not create valuable loot from nothing. Every rare reward had to come out of what he put in. Stored loot, salvage, currency, crowns. A monster kills alone paid ordinary experience and basic materials, nothing more. Kai did the math fast. An empty vault meant worthless rewards, and worthless rewards meant an empty dungeon. He fed it. Duplicate gear, obsolete poison sets, retired weapons, a painful stack of crowns. 42 pieces vanished into the reward system. The labyrinth hit level 20, its fee structure sustainable. One affordable run per player per day. Every extra attempt that day cost more than the last. Competitive players could keep pushing, but their failures would fund someone else's win. Kai preferred it that way, an economy, not a machine that printed money. Machines got patched into nothing. Economies lasted. Jules read that rule twice when Seira arrived for the opening stream. He invented surge pricing for dungeons. Seira looked at the queue curling around Rook's crown. People seem fine with it. People are never fine with surge pricing. They are simply already in line. Wayward Dawn handled registration. And tracked the treasury and reward ratios. Tamsin organized groups by level so veterans could not drag beginners into a room designed to eat them. Commanded the safety team outside the entrance and rejected anyone attempting to force a lower-level player out of position. Kai gave the guild a management share. For the first time, Wayward Dawn's strongest resource was not a founder who appeared whenever disaster had completed its paperwork. It had income, work, and a place in the world that continued functioning while he was away. Se-ha entered on stream. Mudgrave Goblin stole 2 potions before she noticed. She recovered them, laughed at the tiny enemies, and told her viewers that Last Piece Standing had begun as something even weaker. The first room punished that laughter immediately. A starved goblin runt slipped behind her, cut the strap on her supply pouch, and escaped through a hole too small for a player. Seira chased it into a harmless dead end, while Jules watched the party continue without her. "Poor copper monster," Seira muttered. Kai, observing from the control chamber, improved the runt's reward allocation. Respect should be encouraged. Seira's group adapted. They protected supplies in the opening room, burned webs only during Glassmire's safe interval, separated the mountain beasts from their captain, and used movement to survive the Hollow Guardian. The final chest gave Seira a legitimate nightglass charm from Kai's funded inventory. She held it up on stream. That proof did more than any advertisement. The dungeon had learnable rules, useful experience, and rewards that existed before the chest opened. The owner had already built a reputation for delivering what he sold. The queue doubled, then wrapped down the mountain path. Entry fees flowed into the treasury. Maintenance and rewards came out first. Wayward Dawn received its share. A fixed percentage reached Kai without requiring him to spend 10 hours personally farming every item. His 11 traveling followers handled interior resets, vault delivery, and monster rotation under pack mandate. First Dominion kept unclaimed dungeon creatures from spilling into the territory. None of it required Kai to stand in every hall issuing commands. The kingdom worked while its sovereign was offline. That evening, Mina arrived at the address Kie had sent. June waited outside long enough to confirm she had the correct key, then left the two of them privacy. Now, opened the townhouse door and stepped into the wide entrance. Kai stood at the far end of the living room. For a moment, she did not notice the courtyard, the new furniture, or the sealed boxes marked with both their names. She looked at his feet. Kai crossed the room. His stride remained uneven. The right leg tired faster, and the clinic had forbidden him from treating restored control as restored endurance. He crossed anyway, slowly and without a rail. Mina covered her mouth. Kai reached her under his own power. She hit his shoulder once for hiding it, then wrapped both arms around him so tightly that balance became a problem for an entirely different reason. He held on. For years, Mina had carried his weight through hospitals, debt meetings, inaccessible apartments, and nights when he no longer believed staying alive was an act of kindness. Kai could not return those years to her. He could finally stop asking her to sacrifice the ones ahead. When she could breathe again, he gave her the clinic report. She read the confirmation twice. Then, Kai handed her the debt release papers. Mina sat down. The final document was the deed. Both names appeared at the top. What did you do? She asked. I played the game. Kai yay. Very aggressively. He told her the rest. The wrong spawn. The 4 copper ears. Last piece standing. Grey Rook. The auctions, Rook's crown, Frostvein, and the monster lineage that had trained his body one evolution at a time. Mina stared at him when he admitted Grey had been the powerful friend supposedly helping on Kai's behalf. You let me thank you twice. The second time was very convincing. She struck his shoulder again. Then she started laughing while she cried, and Kai knew the explanation had survived. Inside Everdawn, the Runt-born labyrinth completed its first profitable cycle. Seira's clear attracted another wave of challengers. Wayward Dawn kept the line moving, the reward vault remained funded, and 4 copper goblins continued stealing supplies from anyone who entered without respect. Deep in Kai's inventory, the null archive key pulsed once, pointing toward the only unopened mystery he had chosen to keep. That door could wait. The world had once laughed because both of his goblin ears were worth 4 copper. Now it paid admission to enter his kingdom.